Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragon Gate is, how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragon Gate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
You are listening to the Flagship podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
You've told me like 4 times. I can hear you breathing. Stop breathing.
I don't think I said stop breathing. To be honest, I did not say stop breathing.
Rich asked me to stop breathing.
I wouldn't be the first person in the wrestling world to tell you to stop breathing.
And after this show, you won't be the last.
And Rich Crage.
So are you ready for Roadblock End of the Line?
Roadblock End of the Line.
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 Roadblock End of the Line. Roadblock End of the Line. Roadblock End of the Line. Roadblock End of the Line.
Roadblock End of the Line. Roadblock End of the Line. Roadblock End of the Line. Roadblock End of the Line. Roadblock End of the Line. Roadblock End of the Line. Roadblock End of the Line. Roadblock End of the Line. Roadblock End of the Line.
Roadblock End of the Line. Roadblock End of the Line seems to have some buzz. There's a lot of buzz for Roadblock End of the Line.
It really does.
And we are live on the Flagship podcast. I am Rich, but no Joe Lanza this week. It is his annual March Madness week off. He is busy watching college basketball wall to wall, but that's okay because we have a very special guest filling in for him this week. It is the one and only Trevor Dame. Trevor, how's it going?
It's going nice. I'm sure a lot of people are disappointed right now. It will not be the first, neither the last time I disappoint people by showing up somewhere unannounced. But I don't have Joe, a lot of things that Joe brings, but I do bring 2 things he brings, which is his addiction to Diet Cola and a crippling fear of his own mortality. So I have those 2 things.
Okay, that's enough. That's fine. I think that fills some of the quotients that we need on this show. So that's good. What are we sipping today? We got a Z. Are you a diet guy or are you a Z? Because he's a Coke Z guy.
I'm a diet guy. I drink water during podcasts because I am afraid of burping, but I drink Diet Coke because I was raised on. Unfortunately, I feel like Diet Coke Zero is the refined taste, and Diet Coke is the soda equivalent of the person smoking unfiltered Marlboros at age 60 at a bingo game who's just like, I want it to hurt a little bit. I know this is terrible.
What the burn?
But I'm used to this. Yeah, exactly. Like, it does not taste good. But it's the kind of not tasting good I've come to expect.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fantastic. That's great. But Trevor, for those that do not know, one of the few people that still makes Twitter worth going on. I think by my measure, you are one of the only 6 or so Twitter accounts that I think are good. Every other Twitter account is terrible. And that's great. And that's not just wrestling. That's like across the board. I think most Twitter accounts are bad. But you find a way to make one pretty damn good. You also have a Patreon, and you have a fantastic podcast as well, which we should plug right out of the gates here because a man after my own heart through the years, a retro Ring of Honor show. Tell people about that because I think there's a lot of people listening to this right now that would are dying to, because anytime I do retro ROH content, people are like, more, we want more. So plug the podcast right out of the gates, and then we'll get into this stupid modern wrestling that we have to talk about.
Yeah, I've done a show for, I don't know if it's 7 or 8 years now with my friend Matt Feuerstein. He came up with the idea for Through the Years, which is spelled THROH, get it, like the promotion. And we're like a typical wrestling review podcast, but we cover Ring of Honor every show from the start. We do, these days we do a show roughly once every 3 weeks, and we are up to the middle of 2007, and our plan tentatively, unless life changes things, which it always could, would be to end the podcast at the end of 2008. But at the rate we're going, that'll still be quite a while. But yeah, Matt and I, we liked other wrestling review podcasts, and we both grew up together as, not in the same city, but like as young teenagers growing up through like the Sapolsky era of Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
We would always talk about the shows. Matt would go to a lot of the shows. And so years later, we did a podcast together. Matt had a different podcast called List 'em and Learn, which was a very good podcast.
Love that.
And after an episode,
big fan.
Yeah. After an episode, he was like, hey, how about we do the kind of podcast we like, but no one's doing it for ROH? And yeah, we just started doing it. And it's been fun. It's been fun. It's probably the best, most respectable thing I do, if you don't count all the things Matt has had to edit out of broadcasts that I've said over the years. Joe Gagney could tell you a story. I'll just say it. One time I accidentally called April Hunter April Cunter, and without meaning to. I'm sure she's a lovely person. I had nothing against her. I don't think I was criticizing her. And Matt, Matt, I always say is my conscience on the show. And I wanted that edited out, but Matt edited it out. And then without telling me, like right after the show, he's like, shows up and he emails both Joe Gagney, who's on the show with me, and me just that clip. Like just wordlessly, like here's your worst moment.
That is great. Well, I mean, men of a certain age, and I think you and I are roughly the same age. I mean, we saw a lot of April Hunter back in those days, so I do think. I don't know about you, but yeah, a lot of back in because she was one of the common, like when you didn't have many options, folks. Back in the day, you really had to scratch and claw for whatever shred of a naked woman you could possibly find. And I do remember her being very popular in the message board because she was obviously wrestling adjacent or whatever. So you had your April Hunters, your Gorgeous Georges, your Major Guns. I forget what was Tylene Buck. That's right, Tylene Buck. I'll never forget Tylene Buck. And you had to take what you can get in those days. So yeah, she was a common message board because nobody thought that you could also look at like naked women that weren't wrestling related. It was just like, well, no, I like wrestling. And these women are naked, and they also do wrestling. So I'm 12, and this is my life view. So I'll just look at the same picture of Gorgeous George that I've seen 10,000 times, and I'll look at this again. So rough days, hard times. You want to know hard times? That's hard times, folks.
I was always maybe I just got on the internet too quickly, but I was always kind of the nerd who was like, these women don't need to be sexualized because I have this other garden hose of sexuality I can access on my computer at any time. And even without that, that is not a great thing. Women need more of a space. But it was definitely a thing of like, people being like, oh man, Sunny's showing cleavage today. I was like, I can wait till 11 p.m. tonight when my parents go to sleep and wait for this JPEG to slowly load, which shows me way more. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I did not expect this to come.
See, now we got there. See, you were saying the only thing you had with related to Joe was the Diet Coke addiction and your crippling anxiety of death. Well, now you have weird. We talked about the weird sex stuff, so we're good. We can just move on now. We can just now go into what the normal stuff is. But of course, as I said, at Trevor Dame on Twitter, one of the only, if you're still on Twitter, which by the way, stop, what are you doing? But if you're addicted like so many other people are, then absolutely follow Trevor. You must follow Trevor. And the Patreon as well. Let's get all the plugs out of the way. And then, because I don't want to talk about what we have to talk about. So let's just, you know what? Hey, speaking of Ring of Honor, what was your favorite Ring of Honor show of 2007? It's like, I'm actually going back and I should note this, and then we'll talk about the Patreon. I am going back and watching a lot of the 2007 Ring of Honor shows. I'm doing a series on Takeshi Morishima's title reign in Ring of Honor. And what's happened is my goal was I'm just going to watch the Morishima matches. I'm going to load the videos up and I'm just going to go right to the Morishima matches. But what's happening is the video is starting and I'm watching it, and then I'm just watching all of the shows, and it's taking forever to get this project done because the idea was just go to the Morishima matches, but I can't, because 2007 Ring of Honor, that's like my peak of going to Ring of Honor shows. Now I've been watching them for years and years and years and getting the DVDs or whatever, but by that point I had now a job and like freedom and money, and so I was front row for like every show that they were in Chicago, and I'd buy every DVD in 2007. And that it's kind of where you guys are at right now, right? What time period are you guys in? If I wanted to check in through the years,
our very next episode, we will be covering Manhattan Mayhem 2, which is the Morishima Danielson, the first match they ever had.
Yeah, nice. Okay, that's it's. So that 2007, man, there's something about it to me as I've gone and watched back, and I've seen plenty of Ring of Honor. It just feels like 2007 is when everything is just kind of clicking in a way that it hadn't been before. Like there's some clunky shows here and there definitely is, but you have a nice influx of young talent. You have a lot of the older established talent is still kind of there, even though some of them are kind of on the way out. The work rate across the board is just like another level, I think, because you got, mostly everybody that was coming in was really, really good and really talented, and they knew the score, they knew what Ring of Honor was, they knew how to sort of adapt to it, and the stories, I thought that's when they really kind of got this, and they got some of the crummy, like there was a lot of, in the early years, and I know a lot of like kind of edgelord shit in the early days, because everybody was trying to be a fake ECW or and I thought, I don't know, for some reason, as I'm watching this 2007, I'm thinking this is kind of when Ring of Honor maybe fully matured for me, and really kind of became the company that I would now think of every day for the rest of my life and think back, damn, it'd be really nice if we had something like this again, but it'll never happen again, and that's fine.
I think 2007, there's some creative things, like Gabe, I think, is starting to, some of his swings are paying off less than they did maybe in 2006, like the whole faction warfare thing. It has a lot of problems, things like that. But from just a pure show quality, I think Matt, my co-host, would really agree with you. Matt was always hyping like ahead of time, even though we both watched the shows at the time, but he was just like, you'll remember, he was like, when you rewatch these, just how good 2007 was. Like he is on board with a lot of people remembers 2006 as the really great year, but 2007, I think Matt would probably say, is like, just in terms of consistent quality, like even the floor is pretty damn high. 2007 might be the best year in that sense.
Yeah, I think that's what I've really noticed is like, because I'll watch the beginnings of the shows because they'll have like the pre-match promo or whatever, and a lot of times it's a guy talking about their match they're having with Morishima, because I'm watching all those ones. So it'll be Austin Aries cutting a promo about his upcoming match with Morishima or whatever, and then I'll be like, all right, I'll just let this play for a little bit, and then whatever that opener is, every single time I'm watching that opener, it fucking rules. It's like Roderick Strong just going out there and just being awesome for like 11 minutes or whatever, or it's just it just sticks with me that I'm like, man, some of these openers are really, really good, and that's where I think maybe you nailed it there. The floor seems a little bit higher with 2007 Ring of Honor compared to where it was in some of the other years, where they were still kind of a little rough around the edges, even if the high-end stuff was obviously still very good, and obviously in 2005, 2006, and even 04, the high-end stuff is really, really good, but it does definitely feel like the floor of Ring of Honor by 2007 really rises up, and obviously you have the influx of some more Japanese talent in there, and then obviously the story with Morishima, which I adore, and that's why I'm doing a whole freaking series about it, because I think it's one of the great pushes and one of the great stories in wrestling history.
Yeah, and the Morishima arc in ROH that's such a great topic to do a series on, because the Morishima arc is so interesting, where if you read, like on our show, we go back and I try and look at the newsletters and the websites and give a little more context, but Morishima's, if you read like the Observer and stuff at the time, the initial returns from like feedback from Morishima was like, he's not quite there. And I think Matt and I on rewatch have both agreed, no, he was pretty much always really good.
Yeah.
But there was a thing where I think in the first few shows, they tried to do a thing where Morishima was really dominant, and then and he gave his opponents enough for them to be kind of a competitive match that would hopefully entertain people that want like a match that wasn't just a squash, but he was pretty dominant. And I think once we get into the middle of the reign, he starts to, I think the first match you really notice on is when he wrestles Shingo, where Morishima just starts letting guys throw him around a lot. He starts giving people a ton, and it works. Even though you would think, well, you're kind of going away from the thing that would set him apart, is that he's booked so dominant. Once he just starts wrestling guys like Claudio and Brent Albright, and he's just letting any guy that has any muscles, he's letting toss him around to a surprising extent. And you're like, man, and I think and now we're going to talk about on the next show, we're getting to the point where there's a very brief time where John Laurinaitis wanted Morishima in WWE, and Noah says no to it in 2007, but in 2008 they changed their mind. Morishima gets 2 tryout matches, I think, against Jamie Noble and Charlie Haas, I think, and John Laurinaitis is super hot on him, and Vince McMahon just sees him and is like he can't connect with the crowd.
This is a Vince McMahon in 2008 is that man, yeah.
I think according to The Observer, Vince says he would be like another Kotaro Suzuki, which, as Dave points out on The Observer, what do those two people have in common other than they're Japanese?
Right. Yeah, that's Vince McMahon in a nutshell right there. One look at Morishima, and you could tell he's like, and then he sees the work, and he just like, Kotaro Suzuki. It's just like, yeah, you knew that wasn't going to work. But no, yeah, that you nailed it with the Morishima thing. I was on the ROH message boards at those times. That was where I kind of cut my teeth as a wrestling discusser, was the ROH boards. And for a lot of people, when Morishima first came into the company, and obviously they pushed him immediately. It's a classic, like, people think you need a year or two, and this you got to build this guy up, and you got to tell us. Morishima came in, and then like within 2 matches he was the champion. You know what I mean? It was just like, no, this guy, we're pushing this guy, and it was very unfamiliar. People kind of didn't really know. I mean, some people knew, and some people were like, yeah, I know him from Noah or whatever. But all of us were just really kind of taken aback when he was the champion. Like, he won the title. What the fuck? He won the title like that guy, because every other Ring of Honor champion before that had been built up for years and years and years, and was this legacy guy. I mean, with the extent of like Xavier or whatever, it would be the lone exception, I'd say. Most everyone felt like just a real Ring of Honor champion. You know what I mean? Like, everybody kind of got built up through the company, or they had established, or they were like guys that, in terms of like James Gibson or whatever, and they came in from the from WWE, and it was like this fun thing to do that, hey, we're gonna push it because it's a real wrestler, and WWE didn't know what they had in this guy or whatever. And then you have this guy Takeshi Morishima, who comes out of nowhere, and the dominance part that you brought up, I remember the discussion on the boards was he's not good, and that's why they're having him dominate everybody. Is because they don't trust him to go out there and have a traditional Ring of Honor main event or whatever. We don't trust him to have a match that we want or whatever. And I think what you're saying is they got to a point where they're like, why don't we just have Takeshi Morishima just wrestle like we would have any of other guys wrestle? Like, it's okay if the match goes 20 minutes or whatever. It's fine. Like, it'll work. And it did. And then the fans really started to realize, oh, this guy fucking rocks. Like, we knew it. I mean, for people that knew anything about Takeshi Morishima, and like you said, if you watch the matches, he nailed it. But I think for a lot of people, it was like looking at the results, or just kind of having this idea of what this man was. You would think, oh, geez, they just pushed this guy out of nowhere, or did Noah force him to push it, or this is a really bold take, and this guy's not ready. And because in Noah, he wasn't really pushed as like a tippy top guy or whatever. But here he was kind of pushed and presented as a guy that, yeah, he was. So it was really cool. It was just, and I think, like you said, it got to the point where once he just went out there and just had traditional, quote unquote, Ring of Honor main events, everybody kind of bought in and was like, oh, this guy rocks, and this guy he's incredible. And then of course the Danielson stuff comes, and then it's like, oh, never mind, this is incredible. This is just unbelievable stuff. And the Danielson matches are just, yeah, they stand the test of time too. They're just so good.
Yeah, and it's I mean, even that match, I could just go over all that stuff, but like yeah, I think we were just talking on the show recently, and Matt said to me, and I think he's right. We've rewatched everything from the start through the middle of 2007. That like there's a month-long stretch where Morishima has a match with Claudio, a match with Brent Albright that is way better than has any right to be, a 3-way with those guys, and then the Danielson match in like the span of a month. That's about as good of a month as you'll see anyone in that company have. Yeah. Like it just for just top tier, holy shit, everything is a home run no matter who it's against. And yeah, it is just a fun time. And that is one thing you and I have in common, actually, which is because I think I might have mentioned it briefly on our show, where a few episodes ago we came up on the point of the wrestling timeline, the fun topic of the Chris Benoit stuff. And so we talked about it a little bit, and I think I might have mentioned I remember you telling me just like you were kind of wavering on wrestling fandom after that, because I was trying to explain to people that maybe didn't grow up with it how many people in wrestling, like wrestling fans, how dark a time that was, and how many people like dropped off or were like, I'm considering dropping off. And I think you said you had tickets to Man Up, I think it was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of and I was kind of like that for a non-Benoit reason, but like at the start of Ring of Honor, or like the first probably year into it, I gave it a shot. And I was also like, with the death of WCW, ECW, and WWE or WWF back then stagnating, I was like, I honestly think I might have not stayed a wrestling fan if it wasn't for Ring of Honor hitting at that point. And it's crazy sometimes that how tenuous people, that always fascinates me, like when you've been a fan for 20, 30 years or whatever, most fans I find usually have at least one point like that where you're like on the fence where you could go away. Because I have a lot of friends that they reach that point and then they don't come back. And then you find that one thing, and some points in your life, you don't know if you should be angry at that thing for keeping you in. But I definitely, for me, it was Ring of Honor that kept me in things. So in a way, doing the podcast is kind of like paying that back.
Yeah. No, and now that you've mentioned it, I'm kind of piecing together the timeline, and I didn't really realize that Driven, ROH Driven, that was in Chicago, and I knew that show was in Chicago. I didn't realize that was the day before the Benoit murders. So I was at that show. I'm positive I was at that show. If I have the timeline right, Benoit, June 24th. Yeah, June 23rd, ROH Driven. So I was at Driven, and Driven fucking rocked, and I had Kenta versus Danielson in the main event, and it was like, and that like I said, that was during a stretch where I was like front row at every single Ring of Honor show for like a year straight, and just adored wrestling. I couldn't have loved wrestling any more than I did on June 23rd when Kenta and Bryan Danielson left that ring. I was like, this is the greatest hobby, and I'm so glad that I love professional wrestling. And then the next day, my favorite wrestler ever obviously murdered his family. And the way, I think the other thing that people need to, if you weren't around during that time, how the news came out about Benoit made it even worse, because it was like Benoit found dead, Benoit and family found dead. You're like, oh my God, it turns out, oh my God, Chris Benoit's dead. Holy crap. What happened? And then it's like, oh, his family's dead. And you're like, oh my God, what the hell happened? And then we went through the entire day. They did that episode of Raw, for God's sakes. They did a tribute episode of Raw. I don't think people understand that. They did a whole tribute episode, but halfway through the episode, it started to make the rounds. This was before, social media. So it's like you would just kind of maybe get a text message from somebody, or I was just online looking something up and it was like Chris Benoit murdered his family. And I'm like, oh my God. And that, it just, I think for like a month or two afterwards, I just watched no wrestling, because I was like, I don't think I can like this thing anymore. Like, I got this just huge high off of Kenta and Danielson and Driven, which is a really, really good show. And then the lowest of lows that you could possibly have. And then people are talking to me about it, because I'm the wrestling guy, and I'm sure I don't know, do you let people in your real life know that you like wrestling? Because it's a dangerous thing to do.
I try to separate occasion. My first girlfriend, when she was 16, she kind of got word that I liked wrestling, and she was like, let me try watching this with you. And she watched like part of an episode of Raw with me, and I like had to shut off because I was like, I can't handle this. And I think what really sealed the deal where I have to keep those worlds secret is she accidentally like knocked over something on my dresser and broke a really nice head. Like it was like a tape of Noah where it had like the custom cover and stuff. And she could tell I was mad, but I was not showing it. and I have never felt like less of a man. Where I was like, I have to keep these worlds separate.
That's fine.
Yeah, I was like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. And she could just tell.
The eyes never lie. Yeah, your eyes never lie, Trevor.
At that point, I was like, I have to keep these two worlds separate. But yeah, I am the kind of person, I don't know if you get this, where people and family know I talk about wrestling or stuff. And like, people will come to me. Like, I remember once my parents came to me, we were out at breakfast and this old man started talking to us. He said he used to work for Stampede Wrestling and that all the blood was ketchup. And I was just like, Mom, I think that might be a crazy person. I don't think that's real.
Yeah, that's unfortunately I'm the filter for everybody. Like, I have wrestling fan friends or whatever, but all my friends outside of that world, they just filter all through me, which meant the last month I've gotten sent the Luigi Primo video about 1,000 times. Yeah. So yes, I have seen it, everybody. By the way, if you're a family member of mine that wants to, I have seen the guy spin the pizza and then hit somebody with the pizza dough. I have. Thank you for sending it again. But I remember the post Benoit thing. It was like everybody went to me because they knew I liked Chris Benoit and they knew I liked wrestling. And it was like it embarrassed. I didn't want to like wrestling. Everyone's like, hey, what do you think of that? Or hey, what'd you think of that? Like, I remember the 4th of July parade in my town. I'm from Downers Grove, Illinois, which is where Macho Man Randy Savage is from, and Leaping Lanny Poffo was born here and was introduced as being from Downers Grove or whatever. So I'll never forget. I'm just standing there, and all of a sudden, my mom walks over with somebody that, like one of her old neighbors or whatever, one of the neighbors that moved away or whatever. And I turn around, and there's freaking Lanny Poffo right there. And my mom's like, hey, you like wrestling, right? You know about the Lanny Poffo. I'm like, oh, God, I have to have a conversation with Lanny Poffo, like days after the Benoit murders or whatever. And then, of course, like the neighbor's like, hey, that Chris Benoit thing, that was kind of wild. And then like both me and Lanny are like, oh, like what, like, we don't want to talk about this. Like, what do you want us to say? What do you want Lanny Poffo to say about Chris Benoit murdering his family or whatever? But like, they even, because he was a wrestler, they're like, hey, here's the wrestler thing. And it was like, it was inescapable. The Chris Benoit thing was inescapable. It was on, anytime you'd watch the news, there'd be a new update about it, or there'd be, a talking head, there'd be a Nancy Grace or whatever talking about the murders, where you couldn't escape it. So it made you just like horrified to be a wrestling fan. And that's when, I came as close as I did to saying, why do I really shouldn't like this thing anymore. I should really just leave. Like I had a really good thing going with Driven, and that might be the best way to kind of let it end. You know what I mean? And then I did buy tickets to Man Up, and I was like, I'll go and I'll see how it is. And that show was just so fucking great. And I was like, no, wait, wrestling's the greatest. And I'm going to be a fan of this shit forever. And I probably should. I had the exit ramp, Trevor, and I didn't take it. So here we are.
Yeah, that's the way I feel sometimes too. Like I had my chance to get away from this, and now it's too late. But we're here, and this show will be evidence.
This might be the exit ramp again. This might be the exit ramp again. So, Joe is not here. Obviously, he is watching March Madness. He is watching basketball. Now, what is funny though is Joe always bothers me to talk about NXT TV because he thinks it'd be a funny bit for us to talk about NXT TV and NXT, premium live events or whatever. And I hate it. And I would love to never watch NXT ever again. And he always wants me to talk about AAA, the new WWE AAA or whatever. And I never want to do it because it's annoying and I hate it. And I watch it from afar. But I thought it'd be a hilarious bit to the week that Joe is gone. I watch NXT and I watch AAA. And you came to mind as somebody that I wanted to bring onto the show. And I thought, what would be hilarious and also sad, and I'm also sorry, and I apologize, and I owe you. I'm going to make Trevor watch NXT. So I said, hey, the way I did it, I said, hey, are you available to do the Flagship? And you said, yeah. And I said, hey. I forget exactly how I asked it, but I was like, would you mind watching the Booker T Appreciation Week or night of NXT? And it took a little while for you to respond, but you were like, yeah, sure. So I am sorry, but I think it'll be a hilarious bit to have you watch NXT.
I can tell you when I found out, which was I had kind of a chaotic week. I've had like minor health things, but nothing special, just like dental stuff and other things and things in my family, but nothing serious. And supposed to see my uncle. This was supposed to come visit this week, but he got into a car accident and is going to be fine. But all this stuff was happening. So I had my schedule chaotic. I ended up double booking myself on 2 shows on the Voices Wrestling Podcast Network.
We'll talk about that later. Yeah, you are blackballed from the territory moving forward. This is your last hurrah, so you better get everything out right now because you're never getting back on my network ever again.
But anyway, so we had this thing where family was all going to get together with my uncle, and so family was like, well, we still were going to plan to do something today, like go out to eat, let's go do something. And my family decided to go to Red Robin, which was a horrifying decision. I ended up having one of the worst meals of my life.
But the bottomless fries, do they still do the bottomless fries gimmick, or is they that out?
They do the bottomless fries, and not only do they do the bottomless fries, they have certain sides where you pay an extra $3.99. You can have bottomless premium size, like bottomless poutine or bottomless garlic fries.
The problem is it's all bad. The only issue, though, is
the problem is you are sitting there 20 minutes between each order of 5 fries that gets brought to you as they just want to shame you into giving up and leaving.
Right? Are you
so
sure
that the profit
how badly
margin?
You want these 7 more French fries? Like,
yeah,
pretty badly, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was something we hadn't even got our food yet, but it was like it was St. Patrick's Day. It was Tuesday. This guy was in full St. Patrick's Day regalia. He was busy helping a bunch of people start to get drunk at like 1 p.m. And so he was barely coming to us, and we didn't get our food for like 30 minutes or 40 minutes after we ordered it, or something weird. Red Robin, you want to be in and out of there. You don't want that to linger on your psyche. And so anyway, they brought me a burger, and it was not what I ordered. But you ever have that thing where where it is not what you order, but you're like, you know what? I got to take one for the team because I'm not. I just want to leave here.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know what this burger was. It was unidentifiable. It was best I could describe it as like a burger-like structure. It was not anything that I have ever seen before. And
what could this burger possibly have contained?
There was like a green slime. I ordered some burger. I think it was like the jalapeno heat wave. Supposed to have avocado and jalapenos on it. And instead, I got something that was a gray slime that I'm pretty sure was neither jalapenos nor avocado on top of it. But I ate it. It tasted mostly of grease. So anyway, I ate this food, and then our family's like, hey, how about we go to the next town over, look around again, just, let's basically do what we would have done with relatives visiting without the relative visiting. So I'm like, okay. And we're between towns on the highway, and all of a sudden I get extremely sick. And I get the kind of sick where something needs to come out of you, but you don't know where it's going to come out of you. You don't know what number.
Yeah.
So now I am white knuckling it, trying to get to the closest civilization. I get into a Walmart. I run in there. I'm just sitting on the toilet, unable to do any of the 3 or 4 options humans have to expel things. And so I'm just like, I just got to sit here until this passes. So I pick up my phone. I check. I look at Twitter and I see a message. And let me just see if I can look this off. When I looked it up on my phone, all I could see was the first few words of your message, which was, okay, I hate to ask this, ... And I look at it for a second without clicking on it. And I'm like, is this the right time to click on this? And then I click on it, and then the rest of the message is, but would you be willing to watch Booker T Appreciation Night NXT, LOL? And I just sat there for a second. I thought, you know what? I don't know what I was expecting, but somehow this is just hilarious. And I just sat there for a while, felt better, and then I went home and watched it live. I did not even wait to watch it after the fact so I could skip commercials. I was like, I'm going to rip this Band-Aid off as quickly as possible, and I watched it.
I would hope that while you were sitting on the can, the second that you read, can you watch the Booker T, everything came out of your body just immediately, and you're just a cleanse of your body. It's just expelled every single. That's what I would have hoped, or just you just started vomiting all over the place would have been okay as well. But that's kind of how it went. So that is actually a perfect representation of what it is like to have to watch NXT Booker T Appreciation Night. So we are going to talk about that a little bit later. So now I was planning. Here's the other thing too. I was planning on talking about AAA Rey de Reyes, the first night of it, because as a bit, when Joe's not here, I was going to cover Rey de Reyes because he wants me to cover it so badly, and I'm always like, no, I'm not covering that shit. But now he's gone, so I was going to cover it. So I was planning on putting you in the Alvarez chair, the Brian Alvarez chair, where you just don't have to say a thing. Trevor, you could pet a cat, you could do the laundry, you could go whatever. You got like 20 minutes where you don't have to do anything. You can go make a meal, whatever you want to do for 20 minutes. But then you told me, I get on the line with you, and I say, again, I'm sorry I made you watch NXT. You said it's okay, and I said, but at least you didn't have to watch AAA. And you said, Rich, I felt bad about double booking myself on this show and the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, so I also watched AAA Rey de Reyes. You did not have to do that. Why did you do that? What is wrong with you? I finished
it like 45 minutes before the show started.
Why?
I will say this. I did not enjoy it, but if you are ever going to watch Rey de Reyes, watch it after NXT. I think that helps a little bit. Yeah. But although by the end I formulated that thought, I thought that'll be an interesting and true thing to say about halfway through Rey de Reyes. And then by the end of Rey de Reyes, I was like, oh, it's getting close.
Yeah.
Maybe this statement isn't as true as it used to be.
Yeah, nothing come close to how horrible NXT television is. So it is. They're a big difference. It's a multitude of difference, but yeah, it's close. It's closer than it should be. It's definitely closer than it should be. So we'll talk about both of those. We'll review both those shows. We'll discuss the aftermath of the Revolution pay-per-view, obviously from Sunday, AEW Revolution. We already covered that. Joe Lanza and I already covered that 2.5 hours instant reaction live on the $10 tier, flagshippatreon.com. So if you want the review and recap of Revolution, we did that there at flagshippatreon.com. But I want to talk a little bit about the fallout of that show, including the Hangman stipulation, because I know you were discussing with some people online about that, and a couple other topics that we'll get to as well. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start with this one, and then we'll get into NXT and AAA, because this news story is incredible, and I love this, and this seems right up your alley as well. Tony Khan, according to court filings, his company, Base 10, it's a company that he backs, placed a bid on WWE when it was up for sale in 2023. Now, that's the first time we learned about this. Post Wrestling and WrestleNomics' Brandon Thurston discovered this in a court filing about the case about Endeavor getting sold, Endeavor purchasing WWE and the shareholders lawsuit. And if you want to get into all the nitty gritty of that, I link it in the show notes, or you can go to postwrestling.com and read there. But the big story here is that, yes, Base 10, which is a company backed by AEW owner Tony Khan, tried to purchase WWE. And in the filing, it was noted, quote, Base 10 is the owner of All Elite Wrestling, a professional wrestling promotion that plainly would enjoy significant synergies with WWE. I love significant synergies. I don't know about you. I love brand activations and significant synergies. But ultimately, Base 10's offer was the lowest of the four. $6.9 billion was all that Base 10 could cobble together. The other ones were all in the eights. So probably unrealistic that Base 10 and Tony Khan was going to purchase WWE. But can you even imagine like what the discourse would have been if Tony Khan found a way to purchase WWE in 2023?
Yeah, my thought was, I wish there was a third option. I wish, my thought is, I'm glad it didn't happen, because I don't think a monopoly is good for wrestling. But on the other hand, I also don't like the reality that we got instead. I wish there was a third option, which was a different buyer. But I was trying to think of the possibilities the last couple hours once the story broke. And I think what I regret most is we haven't been able to see, we've been denied a reality where we got to see like the busted opens of the world have to pivot, because I think they would have tried for a couple weeks to pivot to TNA and MLW and realized that's not where the audience was. And how many half-hearted walks towards actually, this is pretty good. I mean, I used to only think MJF was the only good part of this. I think that would have been fascinating. And I think it would have been fascinating to see, Tony Khan couldn't possibly run both at the same time. He would have finally had to have delegated something. And I think that would have been fascinating, right? What does he delegate, and who does he delegate it to?
Yeah, and at that point, he's pretty petty about WWE at that point, for sure, because they had done a lot to him and with him. And that's kind of why I wonder if he would have just bought it and just folded it immediately and just said, fuck you. You know what I mean? And that would have been stupid. But when you're a billionaire and you're a wrestling fanatic, and you could do that. You could just say, you know what? Fuck them. I'm done. I'm just closing this thing. That would be so financially irresponsible and very dumb and very stupid. But I mean, if that's the all-time move, right? Isn't that the all-time puffy-chested move? Is to just, without anybody really noticing, and we bring this up all the time. Joe and I talk about this all the time. You'll get people online that are like, Tony Khan's spending all of Shad's money and it's going to run out, and then AEW is going to go out of business. And it's like, do you know what billions of dollars look like? You have to go. I think everybody needs to, at some time in their life, go to one of those websites that shows you the difference between $1 million and $1 billion. You know what I mean? Because I don't think people really realize how much $1 billion is, and they have lots of money. And I always say, Shad Khan and Tony Khan will be okay as long as football teams, both American football and English Premier League, as long as those are still valuable, which I think is going to be for a little while, and as long as cars have bumpers, I think they're going to be okay, right? I think as long as cars continue to be made and have bumpers, and Premier League is considered a top-tier soccer league, and the NFL, the National Football League, continues to make money, I think they're going to be financially solvent for a very, very long time. So it's always just so funny to see that, because they're like, oh yeah, Vince McMahon, he's a successful guy, and Tony Khan, it's like, you don't understand how much more wealth Tony and Shad have than Vince McMahon ever had in his entire life. Multitudes. If you could combine every dollar that Vince McMahon made his entire life, and it would not even come close to what Shad and Tony have, probably in assets, just in straight assets. Shad can sell one of those fucking super yachts and make more money than Vince had in his entire life. People don't fathom how much money those people have, and that would have been the all-time move. It's just close it. But that would have been insane. That would have been insane too. But I don't know. That, in my mind, that's kind of what I wonder, if that was his idea. I really don't know if he could not have possibly run both of them. There's no way.
Well, I would say that you're leaving too much on the table to close WWE. But again, you could, you have, with money, you can be as petty as you want to be. But I was thinking something else. I was thinking right now, which was, people would, my first gut reaction would be like, okay, AEW, WWE interpromotional feud would be huge. But then part of me thought, would it? Because I feel like fans these days are a lot more ideologically poisoned against each other than they were back then. And it's not just about like brand, it's about style of product. Like how many WWE fans would be like, I want to see who's better, Roman Reigns or MJF, if it meant watching an AEW style product that they've been raised, to believe is, too much wrestling, not enough entrances, or they don't last long enough, not enough stories and things like that, where we got a little bit of that when WCW died, where you look at that Invasion pay-per-view, how that was one of the most successful non-WrestleMania pay-per-views WWE ever did, even though they had already completely botched the Invasion angle by that point. There were still people that were like, I want to try this. The idea of this is a promise. But there was, if you look at the ratings, once WCW died, there was 7 figures of people who were just like, I'm a WCW ride or die guy, and I'm done. Mm-hmm. I would rather watch nothing than this. I would be fascinated if he had kept
They never came back.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe a couple to TNA, a couple to ROH in the next couple of years, but yeah. But I would have. That's another thing I would be fascinated about, which is, let's say Tony bought it and he kept it running. How many fans just go, this is where I get off the wrestling train, like we should have, this is where I'm done, where this product does not resemble the product I like. I think that'd be fascinating, because I would guess, my gut says it would be a significant chunk of people.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, because I think if you weren't around during like the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars or whatever, it wasn't necessarily about the ideologies of both companies. It was just like, I don't like WWF, or I don't like WCW, or it was more like, I'm a WWF guy or I'm a WCW guy. I mean, there was little bits here and there that it was like, oh, I like what this company does over that company or whatever, but it wasn't as, like you said, today it's so ideologically severed, of like, oh, those guys are just spot monkeys and outlaw mud shows and we tell stories and like it's the same deal. Like, AEW fans despise WWE because it's all entrances and it's dumb and it's stupid and all this, and WWE fans despise AEW for a number of different reasons and whatnot. So that's really it. Like, there was like, obviously WCW fans didn't like WWF and WWF fans didn't like, WCW, and that's true, but it wasn't so much like, oh, we don't like, WWF because they cut promos or whatever, or we don't like WCW because this or that. It was just like, you kind of had your favorite company, and you probably, a lot of it was divided on the American South versus the Northeast and the West Coast and that sort of stuff. So like, it wasn't, I don't think it would work out very well. I think AEW fans would despise the fact that Tony Khan is like talking about WWE and having to promote WWE and discussing the history of WWE and respecting WWE. Like, the whole ideology of early AEW was, fuck that company, and fuck, we're literally sledgehammering the throne. Like, no, fuck that. So that would kind of be turning your back on it a lot. And WWE fans have been just absolutely poisoned, like you said, to think that AEW is just the worst thing that's ever happened to sports entertainment. So they wouldn't get on board. So I feel like you're right, that I think a lot of people would just say, I'm done, and like, this is not what I want out of either company anymore, if they were owned by the same entity and being booked by the same entity or whatever. So yeah, it really wouldn't have worked. It would not have worked in the way that, and hell, WWF and WCW didn't work either for a number of different reasons, but they'd be much worse today for sure.
That'd be interesting too, is like, let's say he did try and get them to coexist. We've seen there's a history of when people absorb promotions, there's an ego thing where you, even if it would be good for your business, you want to make sure everyone knows your brand is vastly more important and superior to the other brand. Like, I wonder how Tony would have tried to like downgrade WWE if he kept it going, because, I don't think he would have wanted AEW to just be like the little brother to WWE, because AEW is his legacy in a lot of ways. It's what he, created. So, and you see, the history of wrestling is, no matter how good it would be for you to build up the competition that you just bought, most people can't help themselves to just say, yeah, even though I own this, even though it only profits me, I'm going to just now put the exclamation point on this. Like, this was never remotely on my level. these guys suck. This company sucked. Now, please buy tickets for it.
Right. I'll absorb some of the talent that I like, but by and large, this sucks and these people suck. And yeah, the locker rooms are just, I think, a little more different too than people want to admit. I mean, obviously, there's some people that can easily cross over and have easily crossed over, but I think it'd be a tough get for some of these other guys to see eye to eye and.
Cody having to say hi to Tony again. The biggest winner of all of this, Danhausen. Could you a dark future for Danhausen if that sale goes through?
Back to the Indies for you, pal. Yeah, not great. And Punk, not going to go very well for old Phil either. He might need to take a break as well. Because I think when the sale went down, had he gone back already? I forget exactly when the sale.
Sale would have been somewhere time in 2003, and I mean, maybe Tony could have sent Punk to AAA because I know he's a big fan of Lucha, and that would have worked out well. You could build up a whole new brand.
Yeah, or just as a joke too, I could see because Tony still he'd hire CM Punk tomorrow if he could. I think.
Yeah.
I could see him just being like, Punk, you booked WWE now. You know what I mean? Like, and this is your island. You know what I mean? This is, you can literally have, how Collision was like your own little island? Like, this is truly your own little island, and it's WWE. Yeah. So, and that, I think Punk would find that very funny. I think he'd be like, you know what? That's a pretty good bit out of Tony Khan there to purchase WWE, to have enough money to purchase WWE, and then now put me in charge of it. And that might actually work out. They might come to respect one another again if that happened. And honestly, I don't think Punk. I think Punk ultimately, I don't want to turn this into a CM Punk discussion. That is the last thing anybody on earth wants to do anymore in 2026. We've all kind of come to know what that is and what that's going to be. But I think that'd be a fun little bit to just put CM Punk in charge of WWE. We have somebody in the chat room says, keep WWE around, but Raw becomes exclusive to Honor Club, which I like. I like that too. Yeah.
I mean, Tony's always saying like how successful Honor Club is. So could you imagine if you had Raw to Honor Club? I mean, maybe at least 15% more subs. It would do well, probably.
Yeah, get some Raw as War, get the archives of Raw as War up there on Honor Club. Yeah, it'd be good stuff. But alas, it didn't happen. Based on they did not win the. But hey, maybe the lawsuit happens and they have to void the sale to Endeavor, and then they look and Liberty Media doesn't want anything to do with them, and KKR doesn't want anything to do with them anymore. And Base 10's like, hey, we got $7 million if you're $7 billion if you want to sell to us.
I saw someone online say, why would Tony even try? It's like, you got the money. You might as well throw an offer because you never know. I mean,
of course.
Why not try? Like, he probably knew going in if this is even remote. If some other offers remotely in the range of this, they're going to pick that one. But it doesn't hurt. No one even found out about till literally 3 years later.
Right. And if you have multiple billions of dollars, there's a quote in the chat room that's perfect. Lee Connell says, what's the point of fuck you money if you never say fuck you? And yes, exactly. Just like, whatever, who cares? The worst that happens is they take the bid, and now you own all of major American wrestling and major American wrestling history. Like, what would also be the cool thing too is that Tony buys it and then just like folds WWE and then just like grabs all the archives. He's like, I just wanted the tapes. I just really wanted the tapes. I just wanted Mid-South tapes. That's all. I just paid $7 billion for some Mid-South tapes and some Velocity, some episodes of Velocity that I can put up on YouTube.
That you know what you just said, the thing that makes me that is the one thing that might be worth a monopoly that would be horrible for the wrestlers and ultimately horrible for the fans would be Tony would, like, if he didn't do it as his gut reaction, he would listen to those of us that yelled at him. He would put everything from the archive. He'd be finding matches no one's ever heard of, and he'd be making sure those go up because he would want to serve those fans as well as anybody. So the wrestling historian in me now weeps for that because he would serve that better than anyone else.
Definitely, yeah. It's not if anybody has to own all of major American wrestling history, it'd be nice for it to be Tony Khan and not Paul Levesque and Nick Khan or whatever. But it's not. They own it all. Yeah. We get some episodes of some shows up on YouTube sometimes, and that's
I just fully expect one day someone saying, "Yeah, we set the entire like run of Memphis on fire because it's a tax write-off." Like, we melted it down and made Jerry Lawler watch because his tears like produce a dividend or something. I don't know.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, it absolutely sucks. But hey, at least there's enough archivists out there that we have access to some of it. But there you go. So that was Tony Khan tried to buy WWE. Didn't happen. And very fun story. I do love that it took 3 years for anybody to find out that it happened. But there you go. So that is the news there. We'll get into all the other stuff here in a bit, but we got to get to the main event. And that is Booker T Appreciation Night, NXT television. We obviously have not talked to you about this, but what is your reaction to WWE so not caring about the Observer Awards that they literally cannot stop bitching, moaning, and pissing about it? They cannot stop. They did a whole Booker T Appreciation Night months after the Observer Awards just because Booker T won his like third worst announcer award. He's won it multiple times. Why did they never care before? They cared this time. What do you make of this? Why is WWE so weird about the Observer Awards this year?
I mean, there is some plausible deniability that it is in Houston, but yeah, I mean, even if you take this out of the equation, they were so gotten to, and yeah, I don't know why it was this much this year. It's this and the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Awards are the things where it's like people can't stop saying how little they mean, and then also complain about them constantly, which proves that they mean something to somebody, but. It is just I don't get why you just ignore it. Like people don't like I've been doing columns lately, like reading the old awards. People don't remember that stuff. Like if anyone thinks of Mr. Fuji, are they going to remember that Mr. Fuji won like worst manager of the year 8 years in a row or something? Like they're not going to remember that. You know, it's not going to do anything to you. But now it just I don't get. You know, you should do the John Hamm on Mad Men, Don Draper thing where, you know, I don't think about you at all. You don't win when you acknowledge it this much.
It's very strange. Yeah, it's kind of a Streisand effect thing too, where we would all have just moved on. We don't care about the Observer Awards anymore. Like it's fine. It's a 1 week thing that we all go, oh, hey, here's the Observer Awards. And we talk about it a little bit throughout the year and mostly towards the end of the year, whatever. And yeah, maybe it gets a month or two of discussion in our circles. And then it happens and it's over and everybody goes, oh, okay. And then talk about it for a couple days afterwards. And then it's good. And then it's done. And then we move on. And it's just like they have just they're so upset and so gotten to about not winning as many awards as they and the thing is like they cleaned up the last couple of years. Like they've cleaned up in these awards over the last couple of years, but they've had objectively not great television, not great creative, and not great shows throughout the year. And it's just so weird that there's I have never seen WWE in all of the most petty days of Vince McMahon, and there are several. Trust me, there are several very petty Vince McMahon years and things that he did, and there are a lot of petty Triple H stuff as well. I have never seen anything like this year's Wrestling Observer. I mean, they are actively just bitching and moaning about it on the air, like they're taking television time. Becky Lynch had a whole segment on a show doing her awards to make fun of it. They did a Booker T Appreciation Night. They had Vic Joseph going, hey, Booker T, hey, worst announcer. All right, Michael Cole can't stop. They made Michael Cole tweet. Michael Cole never tweets. How'd that happen? What did they say to make Michael Cole tweet for the first time in 8 years?
And you know what's crazy about that is it shows you how much of the narrative is now set not by reality, but just vibes and distortions, because in the well over, I think we're like 45 probably year history of the Observer Awards in some form. WWE/WWF has won Promotion of the Year 4 times in its history. 2 of those times are in the last 3 years. Like, if you want to I could make defenses of why it's only won that many times based on various things. But you know what? If you want to make an argument saying that historically Observer Award voters have been biased against WWE's promotion, I'm listening. You can make an argument for that. But to then make that argument, as you're saying, louder and more often and more publicly than ever during the one time in the 40 plus fucking year history of this award where they're really acknowledging it, like, being mad that they did not give this company, the voters did not give this company a fucking three-peat of promotion of the year when the year was mostly built around John Cena doing a story, a turn that everyone, even like most of their ardent, most true blue fans acknowledged was bad, and where two of their most recent shows ended with the crowd jeering Triple H during a post-show press conference to the point where he stopped appearing in front of a live crowd for them. I think that's acceptable that they don't win every fucking thing this year. Like, holy, and you know what? Like you said, the Streisand effect. Watching this show, I focused more on Booker T's announcing, and I think worst announcer of the year might be too kind to him. I think he might be the worst announcer I've heard in the last 10 years anywhere. He is fucking horrible. And I say that, and I just want to make clear, Booker T, very good wrestler, had a great career, came up through a troubled upbringing. He is more of a man, more talented, more successful at one thing than I will ever be at anything. That doesn't mean he's good at everything. He can be bad at something. It's okay. Most people, again, aren't good at one thing. It's not a crime that he's not good at two things. It's just, he's fucking terrible.
He is bad.
He is Don West without every good part of Don West.
With zero charm and none of the good parts. Yes. Yeah, zero charm and none of the good parts of Don West.
If Don West, when he got bit by the radioactive hype bug, used his powers for evil instead of good, that's Booker T's announcing. It is nothing but enthusiasm with no substance. Like, he's barely saying words at some points. He is just making noises.
He just says that. Half of his commentary is that noise.
Like, when I looking to criticize him, it's not even like I can criticize like the contents of things. Like, go to the Rey de Reyes, I can say, oh, JBL's like way over the top on praise on this thing or whatever. Booker T is just, all you can criticize is that he has nothing to him but noise. He's like a guy who took a bunch of Adderall to do an all-nighter for a test he left to the last minute, except he didn't read the books at all, so now he's just trying to fake his way through it. But he still is hopped up on Adderall. That's like his energy.
Yeah, it's and Joe and I talk about it a lot because on the and I don't watch weekly NXT TV, and I know that you don't as well, because you are despite what you would say, you are a very smart man, and you would never ever stoop yourself to watching NXT on a weekly basis. But I only watch the major events, and the thing about that is you can always sense that Booker T has no fucking idea what's going on. Like, he has no idea what the stories are. He doesn't know anything about the wrestlers. He has no, because how often do you watch the major NXT shows?
Not very. I watch more in clip forms than anything else, but yeah, like the most famous thing he's known for in his commentary career is ordering chicken parm during a show.
Yeah,
like actually, can I will tell this. There is a funny Booker T anecdote from my life. I went to a live Nitro once. My parents took me as like a late birthday present. It was horrible Nitro, and so I go through it.
What era are we talking about here?
I think it was like a Russo era where I think the one I'm thinking of, it might have been main evented by Kevin Nash talking to a cardboard cutout of Scott Hall. That might have been the main event of the show.
Sounds about right, yeah.
But I don't know if this is the one, but I think it was. And so my parents ultra kind of worry about everything, especially my mom, and she was like, we gotta beat the traffic. And I'm like, Mom, the segment's not over. I'm like, no. And I do the usual kid thing where no one else is leaving. Look, we're gonna miss something. There's gonna be something crazy just to beat traffic. You're being nuts. We and she was like, no, we have to leave. So we leave, and I'm walking outside with my parents. I'm saying to her, look, there's no one in this parking lot. There's nowhere else out here. You are so insane about worrying about beating the traffic. And she points out and she goes, look, there's someone else just out here. And it was Booker T. And he was getting in his car to leave.
He's like, I'm not watching.
He was leaving early too. And she didn't know who he was. She was like, look at that gentleman. He's also beating the traffic.
And he is. And that's not wrong. Yeah, he saw Kevin Nash come out with a cardboard cutout of Scott Hall, packed his bag and said, I don't need to stay for this shit. What are they going to do, fire me? I don't care. Yeah. That's
so whenever I see Booker T, I think of that too, which is like, that's the moment we shared together. It was the only two people in a parking lot.
Yep, that's so great. Yeah, him and your mom both were watching that segment and said, "Yeah, we're good. We can leave. This is fine." Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So see,
Trevor,
very
the idiot,
smart
is
guy.
like, no, something might happen. And probably nothing happened. So
Yeah.
maybe Vampiro came out and did so. Yeah. Who the fuck knows? That's a great story. I love that. Yeah, I love the idea of him. I don't think you're supposed to do that. I'm sure Booker was just like, I don't fucking care, man. I'm leaving. So get to the airport.
Yeah,
drive to the next town. That's so good. All right.
Yeah.
Well, sorry you had to leave early, but again, I don't think you missed anything. But yeah, that's the thing with Booker is, for all the people defending him, he never knows what's going on at all. And you can hear, and you saw it in this episode as well, Vic's actively trying to get Booker on the right direction of like a story that's happening. The match is like the Varsity Project. And he's like, Vic's like, if the Varsity Project, if they get this win, that'll be a big upset. And Booker's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's not an upset if they win the match. And Vic's like, I think it's an upset, Booker. Like if the Varsity Project wins this match, that is and he's like, no, they're a top tier talent. And he's like, Booker, I think that, and he keeps trying to tell him, he's like, Booker, look, the story is these guys are the underdogs. Can you just let the story happen? And he doesn't know. And then there's one point where someone runs out. I forget who, and Vic's trying to say the name, and Booker just goes, rah, 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 and he goes, who's that? And Vic's like, I'm trying to tell you. Just stop making noises so I can tell the people who that is. Like, I'm trying to do my WWE announcer stuff where I tell everybody who everybody is. I explain every story 1,000 times over and over again because our fans are dullards. Just let me do the things I have to do, but Booker doesn't let him do that because he's just making noise. He's audibly vibrating or whatever. It's just like, what is happening? It's so strange, and then they have to give this man a plaque and say, yeah, you're appreciated, sir. And
maybe the best moment was Vic at one point said to Booker, you know how to spin a story. And I thought, what evidence have you ever seen in your time working with this guy that he knows how to spin a story in front of the microphone? The way he said it was almost like it was like a taunt or like begging him to prove him right. Like you know how to spin a story, Booker, right? You know, as in blank.
That's constantly the tension that I get from them. So there's some people that are like, oh, Vic, he knows and he's in on the joke or whatever. Vic must be a very good actor then, because I can usually hear the kind of the annoyance in Vic's voice of like, man, I'm working with a literal, like, what is this? I'm trying to work with. It's so hard to do my job and also babysit this guy at the same time. And Booker doesn't care. I mean, it's no skin off his back. He doesn't know. That man takes the headset off and doesn't think about NXT ever again. He doesn't engage. They probably give him a whole bunch of notes. He shoves them off to the side, just goes, you know, like, this guy's not reading his notes. He's not paying attention. He doesn't care what story you want. And the best part about it, let's just get to the Booker T Appreciation Night part of it. This is how I know he doesn't care, is they do the Booker T Appreciation Night. They play a video. They bring him out to the ring, and Vic Joseph's there. And Booker starts at the announcer's table. This is halfway through the show, and then we'll go through the show. So Vic Joseph gets in the ring, and he's got like a really cheap plaque in his hand that he's going to add Booker T for Booker T Appreciation Night or whatever. They go to a video, and various, but not that many, WWE superstars talk about Booker T. It's like, there's like 8 of them or so. There's not really that many people that had anything to say about Booker T. They played an old clip of Steve Austin talking about beating up Booker T in the grocery store. You know, there's a lot of people. There's like Roxanne Perez being like, yeah, you know, I couldn't have done this without him, and he trained me, and yada yada yada. My favorite was Joe Hendry saying that Booker T is one of the most memorable superstars of the last 25 years. Now, I'm not great at math, but Trevor, we're in the year 2026, right?
Yeah.
If I take 25 years off of 2026, that puts us in 2001. So Joe Hendry really thinks in his heart of hearts that from 2001 to the present, Booker T is one of the most memorable WWE superstars.
Yeah, and you're cutting out arguably a lot of the best Booker T when you do that.
Yes.
But you know, like, that's the other thing. Like, how many people just know at this point the Booker T image, because, you know, the idea of Booker T that is sold to them, because he was a talented guy. But I think at one point, like during one of the matches, Vic says to Booker, "You had lots of matches against Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero in WCW." I looked up just to make sure.
I did the same thing. I'm so glad you did. We are two minds. I did the same thing. Go for it.
He had one singles match against Eddie in WCW and zero like a few tags maybe, and that was it.
It was like late.
He wrestled them more in WWE.
Yeah, it was like late 1999 tags that he had with Rey Mysterio. It was like World War III's, and then like a late like Filthy Animals era Rey Mysterio tag match in like 1999 that went like 2 minutes. This is nothing, insignificant.
But again, like that's like the lucha in a lot of ways in WWE has been boiled down to Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, you've had lots of matches with them at some point, I'm sure. Isn't that right, Booker? And then Booker makes a noise. So they do they run the video. You know, a bunch of people say, you know, very generic stuff about Booker T and how important he is to their career or whatever. So his family comes out. They tell Booker to come into the ring so they can give him the plaque. The fans chant, "You deserve it," which somebody in our Discord pointed out perfectly. The plaque said like Booker T Appreciation Award. Of course Booker T deserves the Booker T Appreciation. Who else can get it? I mean, there's nobody else. Booker T Washington and Booker Huffman are about the only people in the world that deserve the Booker T Appreciation night. So, yeah, you deserve it. It's like, I mean, it's the plaque. This is Booker T. It's got a name on it. But regardless of that, he starts crying. Like he's so taken aback by the moment. And then Keanu Carver comes out. I don't know if you're familiar with Keanu Carver. Yes. But he comes out and he's doing baby's first heel. He doesn't know what else to say besides "shut up, you shut up." He comes down to the ring and he just keeps saying, "You shut up, you shut up, you shut up," because he's pointing at fans and fans are like booing him and he's like, "No, shut up, I'm trying to talk, you shut up." So he comes in the ring. He starts beating up Booker T's trainees. Oh, by the way, they were like, "Oh, we brought some of your trainees." 2 guys, 2 men are his trainees apparently. He beats up these 2 men. He gets in the ring. Booker tries to get his family out of the ring, get everybody out of the ring as quickly as possible. And then Jasper Troy, who was Booker T was kind of his mentor on LFG. I know you watched every episode of LFG, so I don't have to tell you, Trevor. I'm just telling the people. I know you're a huge, huge fan of LFG. You don't need to go into any other detail. I just know you're a huge fan. So Jasper Troy comes out for the save. So Jasper Troy is in the ring with Booker, and they've sent Keon Carver packing. So Booker and Jasper Troy are in the ring, and then the locker room empties out, and GM Robert Stone is in the middle of the entrance ramp with all the other roster, and they're all clapping for Booker T. But here's where Booker, I'm positive, and I wonder if you have the same thought. I think he went completely off script here, because he grabs the microphone and says, "GM Robert Stone, you got to get control here. This place is a joke." And Robert Stone, they cut to him and he's like, all right, yeah. He's trying to like temper it down and like he's telling people to cheer and clap for him. And he's like, no, I ain't kidding. I'm in Houston. I'll call the police department. I know people at the police department, Robert Stone. This can't happen on NXT. This can't happen under my watch. This can't happen in Houston. And Robert Stone looks so uncomfortable. I am positive that Booker cut his own angle here. Because it made no sense. It made no sense for him to be mad at that time while the locker room is out like clapping for him. It was so weird. He was still fired up a little bit like during the start of the next match.
Yes.
So yeah, it definitely felt like it was lingering more than you'd expect, which in a way made it feel a little more real, which I'll take what I can get, I guess, from NXT. But it was a weird energy, I'll put it that way.
I just don't think the story was supposed to be that Robert Stone is like an incompetent general manager, especially when earlier in the night William Regal's like, "You're doing a great job, kid. I'm going to tell Shawn Michaels to put you in as the permanent general manager of NXT." Yeah. So
I don't think the focus was supposed to be Booker's connections with the Houston Police Department.
Right. It was just so weird because he's like, no, not in Houston. I know people at the Houston PD, and I'll get them down here tomorrow. I'll get them down here in an hour, and they'll put you behind bars. You can't be doing this. And I'm like, whoa, this is going a weird direction that I did not expect it to go. And as it's happening, Jasper Troy is like trying to get the crowd to start chanting and cheering as well. Like that was the energy was supposed to be, okay, we spent Keon Carver's packing now, so he's gone. Let's all cheer for Booker T now so he can get his moment of adulation. But he's just like arguing with Robert Stone for no reason whatsoever. And I thought that was so weird. So again, I think he's just kind of playing to his own tune most of the time in NXT. But all right, let's go over this entire show. Big picture thoughts, Trevor. You said that you only watch it really in clip form, which is the only way to really watch NXT TV. What do you make of whatever the hell NXT TV is right now? It is Joe calls it the worst wrestling television show that's ever existed. Do you think that's a little hyperbolic, or do you think it's got some merit?
Well, it depends on what you're looking at, because I think there is, like, you could make an argument that it is not so bad. You could argue it's the worst in the sense where I've seen things that are technically worse, that are just even more wrong-headed in, like, the creative direction. But those things would fall into the category of so bad they're enjoyable in some way. This, in a way, you could argue this is the worst in the sense that it is bad in a way that is just competent enough that you can't even hate watching it. It's an itch you can't scratch. It is, and in that sense, it could be one of the worst shows. And I think it's but it's bad in a way that feels kind of oddly well oiled. Like,
yeah, it's not fun bad. It's not like Juggalo Championship Wrestling or like shitty NWA or whatever. It's more competent than that, but it also sucks a lot.
Yeah, like when you think about the worst of late stage WCW or even some of TNA, you can be like, I think they've got some good ideas and some bad ideas, but I also think their execution of their ambitions, they're not even getting close to what they're trying to do. When I watched NXT last night, I was like, or Tuesday, I was thinking, I am not particularly enjoying this, but also this feels like exactly what they wanted to put on the air, other than maybe Booker T going off script possibly.
Whatever he does.
And so again, like, there's a competence to that maybe you have to have a slight shred of begrudging respect for, but then there's also this feeling of there's no room for improvement because, like, it's not like I could say, well, if you do the same things a little bit better, it's like, no, I think this is exactly what you wanted it to be.
Yeah, like you said, it's a well-oiled machine. It's just the machine sucks. It's one of those things where, people will say, oh, they're telling a story. And it's like, well, yeah, the stories are bad, though. You can tell a story and it be bad, and I'm allowed to say it's a bad story. And that's the thing with NXT is it's like it's well-made television. Like, it looks good. It looks exactly how they want it to look. It sounds exactly how they want it to sound, but it's just so plastic and fake and just weird and off. Just very off-putting is probably the best way I could put NXT. It's just a very strange television show. But we start off with a triple threats match. It's a NXT women's title match. Sol Ruca and Zarya are in the ring, and they just broke up, so they're staring daggers at one another. And JC Jane, she's defending the NXT women's championship in this match, and they have a perfunctory triple threat match. I don't have any big notes about it. I don't know if you had much about Sol Ruca, Zarya, and JC Jane for the NXT women's title. But
no, I mean, it was one of those matches where it makes me fear for the future of wrestling in that I watch all of them. I thought they're trying hard, but they just need reps. Like when in the days of the indies after WCW and ECW went down, there was this big thing of like, a lot of the indie workers at that time were only working Friday, Saturday, Sunday, if that. They might only work 2 days a week. There were a lot more wrestlers were becoming weekend warriors. And there was this thought, a lot of fears of fans of that time in like the early 2000s of what's the next generation going to be if they're not working the house show loops and getting more reps, or a lot of these wrestlers aren't getting big tours of Japan and things like that. And those wrestlers proved a lot of us wrong. Like a lot of great wrestlers got developed working 2-3 nights a week. But I kind of feel like this time, we're now in a new world of wrestling where wrestlers are working even less, and maybe we'll all get proven wrong again. But when I watch people like this, like when I watch this match, I was imagining how much smoother and more confident they would be, because I did get the impression that they were doing a lot of effort. And Sol Ruca has a lot of really good natural athleticism, but it was just like, I watched them, I was like, I wish these people could go in a time machine back to an era where they would work 220 dates a year for 3 years straight and then come back, because I think that would do a world, but we don't live in that world anywhere basically now, which is a tragedy. So that was the thing, like Sol Ruca with super kicks that missed by a mile and things like that. But it wasn't the worst thing on this. It was not the worst thing on the show.
Oh, no, not at all. No. But I always bring up Sol Ruca because I think she's tremendously talented. And in any other era and in any other company and in any other, like, we could get something out of Sol Ruca and she could become a very good worker, because I think she's already okay. And she, like, but very formulaic. Everything takes a second to think about. She sets everything up with obvious intent. Nothing is natural. Everything is just a little, but she's an amazing athlete and she can do incredible stuff. And she's got charisma and she's got poise. And there's a lot of stuff that I see and I'm like, man, in any other era, like that woman would be sent somewhere or she would go and she would, like you said, work 200 times and come back and be fucking great. And she's
also
going to
just be allowed to fail and think for yourself, like not just be reliant, have that thing that we see so many wrestlers coming up, especially from places like NXT now, where you guys have talked about before, where if something goes wrong, they just freeze like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah, they have no idea what to do. And that's so much of Soul's matches are clearly like, bullet points. Okay, we said we were going to do this, and then we said we were going to do that, and then we said we were going to do that, and then but she makes it all look spectacular. She does all those really good. So if she could just piece together, putting together a match, if you could just challenge her a couple of times, I don't even think it would take that many times. I honestly think if you just, for 100 matches, said just go out there with your opponent and figure it out. Figure it out in the ring or talk about it right before you go through the curtain, and that's it. Don't spend hours planning every single spot and figuring out every single move. Go out there and be somewhat natural and try to pretend like this is a simulated fight or whatever. But so much of it isn't that. It's just she does, the spectacular stuff, and it's very good for gifts, and it's very good for, people saying, oh, she cooks, or oh my God, she's her. But it's she's really not, and it's going to be exposed at some point, and that's a shame because I do think that she is a tremendous talent that we're just is gonna fall by the wayside just because she's never going to get any better. And we've really seen that. She was spectacular a couple years ago, and she's kind of the same level she was even a couple years ago. So I don't think it's going to turn around anytime soon. And JC Jane's a decent enough worker, but she's been in NXT now for 5 years, and what you see is what you get out of her as well. So.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
Anyway,
and this match is one of those things I hate, which is like a three-way that's all built around the idea that one of the wrestlers in the three-way screwed another one of the wrestlers in the three-way by preventing her from winning the match. Because Zarya, Sol Ruka almost has the match won, and Zarya hits her finisher, and then somehow, the story is, oh, she got screwed by that. It's it's everyone for themselves. I hate that trope. Right.
The whole point of the match is that you're supposed to try to win it, I thought. So it doesn't, it's bizarre, but it's stupid. But all right, we go backstage, a lot of backstage, and everything is this weird hidden camera that there's no reason for these people to be talking in the way that they're talking. We always laugh about that trope. That was a classic. They're watching TV weirdly, with everybody in NXT is all facing the camera with their shoulders to the camera. There's a camera there for no reason. They unnaturally start a conversation the second the camera goes to them. Hi, Kendall. Hey, Ren. And we also do this thing where they have to identify who everybody is every single time because they're after Brian Alvarez's heart. I'll tell you that. Because you will know who everybody is because Kendall Gray will say Ren every single time she's addressing Ren Sinclair, and Ren will say Kendall Gray every single time. Ren, I think this should happen. Kendall, I think this should happen. Ren, it's not what's going to happen. Kendall, I think that should happen. I'm like, we get it. You're Ren and you're Kendall. I'll figure it out. It's okay. You don't have to say that. You know what? But they do that. So they're just Kendall's just gassing Ren Sinclair up. I forget what. Oh, you're going to win the title or whatever the heck. Birthright rocks in, and we'll have more to talk about Birthright because I love Birthright, and I hope you do as well. Low Love Vice walks in and tells Kendall and Ren that she's going to win the women's title at Stand and Deliver, and then she leaves. But I love this because Lola has to come into the frame, but she can't walk like a normal human. She has to shovel, kind of, she has to keep her because you have to have your shoulders to the camera, so she has to enter the frame and kind of wiggle in and be like, hi guys, and it's so weird. Why do they shoot stuff like this? We don't have to do this.
When you watch NXT, it's fascinating that you get to see basically a dozen people all of varying quality at a very specific skill, which is, can you say very wooden, nothing but like explaining things and setting up the next week's matches. Everyone gets 2 or 3 lines. How much can you make that sound like your own? And you see, when you watch a show like this, you see the full spectrum of people that have the charisma and the ability to kind of make the words sound natural in their own mouth, to the people that are the most wooden. They are the cardboard cutout that Kevin Nash was talking to on that Raw I went to as a kid. They are, and it's like, it's a very specific skill. It's one of like the main skills you need at this point on NXT.
Yeah. Because Lola walks in. She's like, "Hi, Ren. Hi, Kendall. I heard you guys are talking about winning the women's title, but I am going to win the women's title at NXT Stand and Deliver." And you know what I mean? It's like, okay, she get the names out, say like 3 words in between that, and then talk about whatever match you're going to have at whatever night you're going to have, and then leave the frame. And that's it. And that's exactly what she did.
Yeah.
So then we go to the ring. Ricky Saints is on his way to the ring with his very bad theme music that sounds very like they're trying so badly to do the AEW theme, but can't quite get it. Doesn't quite work. He gets to the ropes to do his little pose, and he slips on the ropes. And he realizes, because Ricky Saints is a smart guy, he realizes, I better address that. I can't not say that I slipped on the ropes. Everybody knows that I slipped on the ropes, because he's up on the ropes, and he slips and he falls, and Booker's laughing the whole time. Booker can't contain his laughter, which is not helping the matters at all, as Booker's going the whole time.
He did the opposite of what an announcer, supposed to cover for it, and he instead like shined a spotlight on it because he was so amused.
He's like, he slipped off the ropes, Vic. And he's like, Vic's like, oh yeah, he did, yeah. It's like we don't have to say it. We could try to, but Ricky was smart enough to realize that I should probably say something. The problem with Ricky Saints is he comes out here and he cuts his promo. The fans don't really care about Ricky Saints, and he's cutting a promo with WWE cadence. So he goes, "So I heard my man Ethan Page has been saying that he wants to," and I'm like, dude, you can't keep those spaces in. And guess what happens? The fans realize, he's got spaces in there. What do? We chant what? And especially since he slipped on the ropes, they decided they were just going to chant what. And Ricky got frazzled, and he says, "You better say what for Miles Bourne when he comes out here later, not me." And it didn't help, because then he just kept, and then he decided, I can't keep the spaces anymore. I have to now cut a promo like a normal human being, even though I was told to cut a WWE promo with all my spaces in between, but I can't do that, so I must talk fast now to ensure that we don't get what chants. So not a very good Ricky Saints promo at all. He seemed frazzled by the slip on the ropes, frazzled by the what chants, and then couldn't quite get things back on track for Ricky Saints. But any thoughts on Ricky Saints promo before we get to all the other people that came out and yammered on for a little bit?
There was a line in that promo where he talked about being a great pivoter, which I felt like maybe that was just on the fly acknowledging the slip, but I feel like that was probably preset to acknowledge the guitar thing they've tried to, the I believe in Ricky thing they've tried to scrub from history. And I feel like it's tough to deal with something like that gets universally panned. Like, if you sometimes I almost feel like you should just ignore it, because I feel like if that becomes too much a part of his history, I would just rather just try and move on and let that be forgotten than trying to acknowledge, well, like, look, I've moved past that. Like, it's just move past it by not even acknowledging it. Don't even hint at it. And it's just, I have a little more to say, but I think I'll get to when Paige comes out.
Yeah, so then Ethan Page comes out and he's cutting a promo, and they're doing this like we're a team, but like we're obviously there's tension between us. We don't see eye to eye or whatever. Joe Hendry comes out. He cuts a very bad promo as well. Ethan Page, his promo was no good either. It's like really bad. They were just doing like very bad, generic, like they weren't talking like human beings, even though I know Ethan Page is a good promo and I know Ricky Saints is a good promo, but they're both talking like WWE superstars and not real human beings. So it's like, yeah, that's a good idea, Ricky. I think we should do that. And it's like, Ethan, I don't know if that's a great idea. Like, it's just really weird stuff. Like you said, NXT promos are just so strange and so weird. And then Joe Hendry's like, it seems like you guys are not seeing eye to eye or whatever. And then Tony D'Angelo came out and attacked him. So I forgot. They also teamed up. They pretended that they were going to fight Ricky Saints and Ethan Page, but then they ended up beating up Joe Hendry, and then Tony D'Angelo came in for the save. I forgot that part.
And, it's interesting watching Page with Saints because, like you said, they both have charisma, but generally I would say Saints is the way better promo. But in NXT, I think NXT is like draining something from Ricky. I think Paige seems like a guy that's in the moment and has a level of confidence. And when you look at Ricky, and maybe it's more just the recent stuff I've seen that's coming off like not a great time for him, you get the impression of a guy who like you can see behind his eyes, he knows this isn't quite clicking. Where with Paige, it feels like this is a guy who, whatever you think of it, he probably thinks this is going pretty well for him. And I think that makes a difference, unfortunately.
I think Ethan Page is where he wants to be.
Yeah.
And I think Ricky Saints is in WWE, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. He's not at the spot. Yeah, it's just, and that really, I think that makes a difference in your performance. I think you can there's a bit more unease behind one guy.
For sure. So then Tony D'Angelo came out. He's not a typical Italian anymore. He kind of looks like Juice Robinson now. He looks like a gassed up Juice Robinson. That's Tony D'Angelo. So then we go backstage, and Birthright, which we talked about last week on the Flagship. The best part about Birthright is that they keep talking about how much they love their parents and their dads and how they set the stage for professional wrestling, but none of them are named after their parents. You have Uriah Connors and freaking Charlie Dempsey, and it's just so funny that it's like Lexus King, and it's like, well, if you're so enamored with your parents, why did you all change your names to things, including like quite literally the story with Lexus King when he came into NXT was my dad sucks and he was an idiot and he died, and now I don't want to be named after my dad anymore, so I'm Lexus King. And now he's just like, my dad's the best. I love my dad. It's like, okay, whatever. Fine. All right. Then change your name back, brother. Like, why are you still Lexus King?
Yeah, like, because WWE, it used to be the idea of, okay, we'll take these legacy wrestlers and not take advantage of their names and have them come with a new name. But then, at least then, in a way, it was, I don't know if I would say better, but at least less aggravating, where they would just not ever acknowledge that they had any relation to the wrestler that birthed them. Where, this angle is shoving right in your face, we're related, which makes it even weirder that no one's taking their parents' names. Like, I would almost be better if you just didn't do things that acknowledge that Charlie Dempsey was William Regal's son, if you're going to call him Charlie Dempsey.
Yeah, it used to be so annoying back in that era that you're talking about, where you'd have, Michael McGillicuddy, and it's like they didn't pretend that he was anything but Michael McGillicuddy or whatever. They didn't spend the entire time talking about it. They do it with Braun Breaker too, where they're like, oh, that's Rex Steiner's son. And it's like, well, then why is he Steiner? Like, why is he Braun Breaker then? Like, if you're going to scream about how he's a Steiner every fucking second of his match, then why is he not Steiner? Like, you know what I mean? It's so, and this is like, we're all our dad's legacy or whatever, but none of us have our parents' names. It's like, what then don't, it's very strange. But anyway, they just have a basic ass. William Regal and Fit Finlay are like, you guys should win the tag team tournament. We don't have a bracket, by the way. No brackets on the tournament. If AEW did this, they'd be mercilessly mocked, but WWE does it, and it's fine. Whatever, who cares? Regal then stops Robert Stone and says, I heard you're an interim general manager, but you're doing a good job, and I'm going to tell Shawn Michaels that you should be the permanent general manager. So, Trevor, I'd ask your thoughts on Robert Stone becoming the permanent general manager of NXT, but I would really hope that you don't have any thoughts on Robert Stone becoming the permanent general manager of NXT. I know you should not have any thoughts, and I would be troubled if you did.
There were times during the show I was looking at an empty text file and going, I should write something, but nothing is coming.
No, you should not. Yeah. The Los Americanos, the biggest stars in the WWE universe right now, are the freaking Americanos, especially if you watch NXT and AAA, we'll tell you that. But they're all over Raw, too. They're everywhere. The freaking Americanos. So it's El Grande Americano, Bravo Americano, and Rayo Americano versus the Varsity Project with Ricky Smokes, Brad Baylor, and Evolve Champion Jackson Drake. So young superstars here in the Varsity Project. But this was probably the best match on the show just because it was mostly just a professional wrestling match. And I don't know. This was okay. Like, if you had to watch something from NXT this week, this is fine. This is just perfectly acceptable professional wrestling, I guess. I don't really have anything else big to say about it, but I don't know if you have any notes there in your text file. Yeah.
I think Bravo did a tope wearing a hat. That was kind of neat. And yeah, it is, to see, Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, in there. I feel like they're something I can relate to. They're at that point in your life where, You're not what your parents want you to be. So they're like finding a new floor to settle for. Like you should get that job at the Costco or something like that. I feel like looking at them, it's like I found myself thinking, this isn't the worst spot I guess they could end up at this point, given everything that's transpired in recent years for them. Like they get to be kind of the good veteran hands that'll help young guys learn.
We're never going back with them. I think like the real point is like we had that moment and we saw it and we were like, wow, these two men are 19 and 20 years old. They are the future of the business. And that was like 9 years ago. And it's we're done. It's never going to happen. So it's fine.
Half a decade ago, you'd be like, I can't believe this is what they're doing with them. And at this point, maybe it's just been beaten down. I'm just like, this is not the worst use of them. It's far from the best, but you know what? Go for it.
Yeah, I think when Bate turned like 24, I wrote an article for the Patreon. And I was like, can you believe this man's 24 and this is what they've done with him in the years since? And now I would never, if he turns 30, I'm not going to write that article because at this point I'm like, yeah, it's fine, whatever, man. Who cares? It is what it is. This is their lot in life, and you know what? It's the life they probably deserve, given how they handled their professional wrestling scene. So hey, this is what this was worth blowing up. I mean, you know what? They got jobs for life. They've been there now for a decade, and they might have jobs forever. So. Fine. And
again, if I was running NXT, I would want them to have jobs for life because I think those are the kind of guys. If I'm really interested in developing talent, those are good guys to work with.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you can see it here. And this is why that match is great because you have the Varsity Project, very, very young guys, very green guys. And they can continue to have matches with Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne. That's going to be only help them get better and better over the years. So we go to the Speed title, the 5-minute time limit WWE Women's Speed Championship. I can't believe they're still doing this, but they still are. Ren Sinclair defeats Fallon Henley, which is going to cause some tension in the Fatal Influence team because Fallon Henley lost her NXT title or her WWE Women's Speed Championship, but JC Jane still has hers. But Ren Sinclair wins the Speed match, and they're 5-minute matches. I don't know.
It's. I think there's way too many titles in wrestling, but I guess the only argument you can give to something like Speed is if you're going to have that many titles, at least make them somewhat different in terms of like, at least it's something different. I would rather it not exist, but it's, like I like the Continental Classic, but one of the reasons why that's so good in AEW is because it creates a different kind of match. And at least this is not as enjoyable as that, but it at least follows the same principle.
I do love, the comparison. You're not wrong, but I do love comparing the WWE Women's Speed Championship to the Continental. But you're right. I mean, you absolutely are right. Yeah. But they are of the same ilk, but of the completely different spectrums between the two. But yeah, I appreciate that there's a title that has a different sort of thing to it. What's funny is WWE fans hate this title. They despise the Speed title, and I don't know why. These fans don't like wrestling. These matches are over in 5 minutes, but they're always like, if this match was 10 minutes longer, it'd be good. Do you really think Ren Sinclair and Fallon Henley with 10 more minutes would have been better? I think 5 minutes is perfectly right amount of time for Ren Sinclair and Fallon Henley.
Exactly. You would think this would be their favorite title, like you just said. That's like it's the title that guarantees you won't have to watch much wrestling for the next segment.
Yeah, it's weird. They very much dislike it. So then I don't know if there was any segments in between. I think we went then to our number one contenders tournament semifinals. Again, we have no brackets. We don't really know who else is in this tournament, but Birthright, Uriah Connors and Channing Stax Lorenzo defeat Hank and Tank. So Uriah Connors and Channing, which again, Channing is kind of a Fugazi Birthright member. He's only dating / engaged to Santino's daughter. I don't know if that really counts. And Uriah Connors is, of course, he's what the hell, Finley, Brogan Finley, or whatever is Uriah Connors. So I don't know. Hank and Tank are they had a run there where people were trying to pretend that Hank and Tank were like the next thing in NXT and the next thing. They still do like the Public Enemy cosplay. It's kind of rough. It's a little rough. It's a rough feel. I don't hate them. They're fine, but it's like, yeah, they're not going anywhere in this company.
Yeah, this is probably where I started to feel like the blandly what I was saying earlier, which is it's not for me, but it's what it feels like it's what they want it to be. It's a well-oiled machine. I think this might have been the match where Booker says you can trust William Regal like a snake, which maybe he's trying to get in Tony Khan's good graces, setting up a little backup
Tony's
plan.
Along, like I'll tell you, brother.
maybe one day if there's an opening for Collision, I could trust this guy.
Oh God, that's so good. Yeah. this is where the life started to kind of ooze out of me as well. But you had Birthright, and they're kind of generic, and then Hank and Tank are doing like a Public Enemy cosplay, but they also like
the belly slaps on top.
They slap their bellies a lot. Yeah, it's like I think they've realized we need to have like a yeet. So our yeet is like we open our shirts and we slap our bellies. So good luck with that. They're like, hey, if Otis gets released, like they're going to need a new Otis, so that could be us. But yeah. And then a bunch of stuff happens backstage, including Out Da Mud brawling backstage with Dark State. Pretty vicious attack by Out Da Mud to Dark State. But there you go. The backstage of NXT continues to be so maybe Booker T was right. Maybe Booker T is right that Robert Stone's got to call the Houston PD and get this thing under control. Then we go to a horrible segment. Oh my God. You want to talk about plastic weird acting and people having to say everyone's name. And like you said, the NXT promos that they want them to do. Thea Hale's back there with Tatum Paxley. And now Tatum Paxley is getting ready for her NXT North American Championship Steel Cage match or whatever. So as unnaturally as humanly possible, Thea Hale goes, I know what it's like to be bullied, Tatum, and you should just not listen to the bullies and make sure you have confidence going into the NXT Women's North American Championship Steel Cage match in our main event or whatever. It's like, what is happening? Like, nobody talks like this. And Tatum goes, thank you for the words of encouragement, Thea Hale. I agree that I should not be bullied, and it's just terrible stuff. And then Kalani Jordan comes in. Then she's a bully. She's a big bully. She goes, Tatum Paxley, you're no good. Thea Hale, blah, blah, blah. And then Jada Parker comes in and she goes, Kalani Jordan, don't bully people. I'm like, what is this show? Why am I watching this? How does anybody watch this? Joe always says, how are you an adult and watch this show? I mean, did I mince any words of what happened here?
No. And the crazy thing is there's been so much debate this week, as there's so many goddamn weeks about, AEW, all this stuff, like, can fans catch up if they miss a week, or is there too much? Are they not doing enough video packages? Where I was like, you know what, this NXT show, I was not lost at all. I thought it did a good job catching me up. I knew exactly where I was. The only problem was I didn't want to fucking be there. Like,
I want to leave. I don't want to be here.
Yeah. Like it set up a show for the next week very well. I don't want to watch it. It explained everything that was happening in recent weeks. I don't want to go back and watch that. Like you can explaining where things are going and where we're at is not even half of the battle. And yeah, you can robotically do it like an AI generated promo, and you can and that's the thing with these promos is it lays out the beats in like 2 or 3 sentences a person, where there's no color or personality. It is literally just, I like or dislike this person, and that is why I am going to what I'm booked for next. Insert what I'm booked for next week here. Period. Yeah.
And people enter the frame, and everyone's got to say their name just so you who is that? Oh my God, is that Jada Parker? Yes, it is Jada Parker. Thank God Kalani Jordan said, why are you here, Jada Parker? It's just like, God damn it, this is so bad. And it's just, it's just basic ass A to B to C, and people want this. I don't, but people, there'll be wrestling pundits that want this. They want AEW to be like this, and I don't understand it. I don't get it. I would never want the wrestling show that I watch the most to be like this. Where everything is just crammed down your throat and just presented as if everybody watching is a corn cob that just turned this thing on for the first minute of their lives and has no capability of figuring out anything else unless they are told, who is that on the screen? Oh, it's Kalani Jordan. Thank God that Tatum Paxley told me it's Kalani Jordan. Oh, wait, who is that? Oh, it's Jada Parker. Okay, thank God Thea Hale said it's Jada Parker. Like, well, what and like you said, I don't like you, and I am going to do this thing at this show. And that's the bulk of every single story on this program. And I don't know. That kind of sucks. And then we get to the steel cage match, which really kind of sucked. It's Izzy Dame versus Tatum Paxley, and Tatum Paxley wins to retain her NXT Women's North American Championship. So she is celebrating. Do you have any thoughts about the match, or can we talk about the ridiculous post-match?
I'll just quickly say it felt like at times, like they spent, whenever they got into a certain like interesting position in the ring, they just spent forever there. It was like they had a time cue, and they had whatever time this match was, and they had 5 minutes worth of spots they had to just hold. So like if we're standing on the top rope and slamming each other's head into the cage, we just got to do that for a while and take some pauses between slams. If we're staying on top of the cage, we've just got to sit there for a while. Izzy Dame, no relation.
I should have asked. Yeah, are you not long lost relatives? You and Toxic Attraction? No, she's not. She's in the Culling. Sorry, she's in the Culling.
but that's another thing that's changed so much. When I was a kid, one of the big complaints would be, oh, this is a great worker, but they have no facial expressions. And you would just be, that would be a big thing you'd harp on, is which wrestlers can pull good facial expressions and which wrestlers like do all the mechanics right. And now it's gone the complete other way, where it's, I wish there was an epidemic of Botox in modern professional wrestling, not because anyone looks bad, but because some people just need their face muscles paralyzed. Like they need to be, they need to just stop. They need to be protected from themselves, because Izzy Dame here was just emoting way too much. And it was painful to watch. It was one of my least favorite parts of the show. That was the part of the show I was like, yeah, I'm good on NXT for quite a while. I've been topped up on my NXT meter.
Yeah, and that happens a lot too, because they're told, yeah, I got to show emotion, and you have to, and yeah, the women particularly in NXT are clearly told to do that, because they do it a lot, and especially like Tatum Paxley is just going to scream and cower, and it's all just so plastic and fake, and like you said, it has no sort of. You don't think you're watching like anything realistic at all. You can tell you're watching a show about professional wrestling the entire time you're watching this. So after the match, Tatum Paxley is celebrating her triumphant victory in the steel cage match to retain her women's North American championship. She has finally put Izzy Dame and the Culling in her rear view, and then a freaking trap door opens, and then Blake Monroe pulls her into the trap door and holds up the title. And Vic Joseph and Booker T do hushed tones, like it's like they're announcing a death. They do Owen Hart voice. Vic's like, what is that, Blake Monroe? What is she doing? And Blake Monroe emerges from a hole in the entrance ramp and drags Tatum Paxley to hell, or whatever the hell the floor of the Houston place, the music hall they were in. And yeah, what the fuck was this? What was this? And then the of course the executive producers come up, Lee Fitting, Paul Levesque, Michael Hickenbottom. They don't call him Michael Hickenbottom, but they should. So
I don't know if you've ever had this, but as someone that talks way more than me on in front of microphones about professional wrestling, where you're taking notes, as you often do, and you get so exhausted about, like, as the show goes on, your note volume gets less and less.
Oh, yeah.
And I look at this segment, my note for this entire segment is I just wrote Blake Hole in it, but I didn't put a space between Blake and Hole, so I just wrote Blake Hole, and that's my entire note for this. She fell into a Blake hole. It was. I don't even know. I don't know what's going on with this thing. My God. And it was so bad, because I don't know if it was supposed to be like an NXT kind of like, is this them trying to do the old takeover? Like, just when you think the show's over, something crazy happens.
Yes.
Except this time, it's like it caught you so off guard, where it's just like it was like almost just seconds left. It's like, oh, she's in a hole.
right. Yeah, that's the best. For people that didn't see it, and you shouldn't, and you definitely do not. Like, all of a sudden, a trap door opens, and they're like, "What's going on?" And then Blake Monroe's head pops up from the and Vic Joseph goes, Blake Monroe, and then it goes off the air, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. Like, I kind of thought, like, what the fuck is Blake Monroe doing in a hole in the entranceway? Like, was she there the whole show? Like, and where's Tatum? Like, are we supposed to believe? Is this like the portal? Like, because back in the day, you'd have the Undertaker, and he would drag people to hell, and it'd be like a dirt, pile in the arena that the Indiana Pacers play basketball in or whatever. And I was like, what are we supposed to assume that's underneath this dirt? Like, it's just the floor of the arena, right? Like, what's going on here? So, like, we're just supposed to assume that she got dragged to this weird area below the entrance. It's just so weird. Of all the things to do, all the attacks to do, and all the ways to. It's a trap door in the entrance. I don't know. It's very strange. But yeah, the way they presented it, like you said, they wanted to present that it's like, oh God, we're out of time, and what just happened. But it just came across very confusing, because you're like, oh, there's a hole, and Blake Monroe's in the hole. That's kind of, all right, well, that's it. And then it just signed off, and you're like, all right, well, whatever. So Blake Monroe's in a hole, I suppose. So.
Yeah. So overall, I would say this show varied in quality from, if someone paid me to watch it, I would begrudgingly, to I wouldn't even for money. Like that's the quality. That's the quality range that NXT operates in. That's the window.
Yeah,
and we got a bit of both.
We definitely got a bit of both, yeah. And then, of course, the Booker T appreciation. That was after the Los Americanos Varsity Project match for people that are taking notes. But do not watch NXT television at all. So, Stand and Deliver coming up very soon. They did not. They mentioned how it's going to be in St. Louis this year. Now we can't wait to go back to St. Louis. And it's like, yeah, you wanted to be in Las Vegas, but you didn't have any confidence that anybody would buy tickets to go to your show at 10 a.m. in Las Vegas. So now you're in St. Louis 2 weeks before WrestleMania weekend. But hey,
Rich, it's the biggest NXT show of the year.
It is. It is the culmination of NXT's year. Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of constant hyperbolic statements, let's go to AAA Rey de Reyes. The WWE version of AAA. Now, how much of WWE's version of AAA have you watched so far?
Again, I sample it. Once because Triple H told us it was going to be authentic Lucha Libre.
Oh, and it is.
So
JBL tells us all the time it's authentic Lucha Libre.
I mean, when you've got the creative mind of the Undertaker doing it, I mean, how are you not going to get something that it can't help but be authentic? And
right.
and yeah, it is. There's just enough left of the DNA of Lucha and AAA in there, but the problem is it's the bad. Like I think a lot of us when WWE purchased AAA, we were like, this is bad for wrestling, but AAA is such a clown show that a competent but kind of with all the bad foibles and quirks of WWE will be an improvement. And I watched this show and I was like, technically I think that's true, but whenever I watch check in on AAA lately, I regret ever feeling that way because I'm like, this is bad for wrestling because this is just spreading this and it's going to. It's going to destroy another scene and just teach them that this is all wrestling is. And the fact that it is like, I expected that we would get to this product eventually, like this very much WWE with a hint of something else in it. I didn't think we'd get there this quickly.
Yeah, it's been rapid. And that's the thing that if you watch the television and Joe's done reviews of it behind the Patreon and I've watched a little bit here and there. And it was like the first week that they did this AAA, it was like, because they did the first couple of major shows or whatever. And those had kind of a tinge of WWE, but still had like kind of the real ethos of a AAA, just not the ridiculousness of AAA, not the dumb parts of AAA, which actually kind of goes full circle to something you talked about with NXT. And we'll get to in a second. But it really was like by week 3 of their television show, it was like they fully established that this is just a WWE television show that kind of features Mexican wrestlers, but really the biggest talents on the show are white guys in lucha masks or whatever, and Dom Mysterio are really the stars of the show. But to your point, like AAA before, is WWE's version of AAA more competent pro wrestling? Absolutely. Is WWE's version of AAA more respectable professional wrestling? Absolutely. But it's not fun bad. It's just perfectly like well-oiled machine bad, like you talked about NXT. And that is almost more annoying and more frustrating, is to have it be produced well and look good and sound good and be competent, but then also be this. Like this is bad. Like nobody should want this. Like I will take fun bad AAA. I will take goofy, what the hell are they doing AAA over this 1,000 times out of 1,000. I will always take something that looks and feels different than what has been the norm in major American professional wrestling for decades now. And that's all AAA is now. It's just slow. I mean, this show started off this Rey de Reyes, which used to be a one big event, and then now they're doing it as a TV taping across 4 weeks. I mean, what better representation of it just being another product in WWE's ecosystem is that? But this starts off with Rey Fenix coming out and cutting an endless promo. He's in the ring for like 15 minutes just cutting this promo, and I'm like, God damn it, dude, get out of the ring. I don't need to hear this anymore. And he's saying nothing. He's just like, yeah, AAA, yeah, authentic Lucha Libre. And then Penta comes out, and then Penta says nothing for 5 minutes, and then they basically... The end result of this 25-minute opening promo is, hey, we should team again sometime. And that's it. And that's all we got. For 25 minutes, we got Rey Fenix and Penta saying, it'd be cool if we team together sometime soon. And that was it. That's the opening promo. That was all. Rey Mysterio translated the entire time, so at least they're translating these things.
I think this show was like an hour and 37 minutes on YouTube. You get 3 matches, and I was just trying to scramble quick to check. I think the first match, the bell didn't sound until maybe like 26 minutes into the video.
Yeah.
So, again, authentic Lucha Libre.
Yeah, long promos that say nothing at the beginning of a show. That's authentic Lucha Libre. I love it. And what we saw throughout this entire show, to an annoying degree, is WWE's insistence to treat everything like the biggest and the greatest and the most legendary, and this person's the most legendary person ever. That's the most legendary thing ever. Rey de Reyes is the most important trophy in wrestling that you can ever have. We do entrance videos for all the people that are going to be in Rey de Reyes. It's Grande Americano, La Parca, original Grande Americano, and Santos Escobar. Sorry, my dog is coughing in the background. I hope that's not too distracting to you. It's a little distracting to me.
No.
Try to get him. He'll get it
Hope
out
he's
there.
Okay.
So. He's an old guy. He'll figure it out. But we're at. This is authentic Lucha Libre. This is the greatest Lucha Libre. We're in the town that has the greatest history of Lucha Libre ever. We're in Puebla. That's the best place to watch Lucha Libre ever. We do the intro video. They say that La Parca is a 5-time Rey de Reyes champion. This was galling to me. I don't know what you thought about this. I was going to ask you, do you think this is offensive? This to me is this La Parca has never won a Rey de Reyes. This La Parca has not won shit. This is not the same La Parca. The other La Parca, the one that does not work for you, won the other 5. That I saw that and I was like, ooh, I don't like that at all. I mean, they are treating these like one continuous character. 0-1 doesn't treat. I mean, I don't think they treat the current Hayabusa as if that is literally the old Hayabusa. I think they treat it as like, yeah, he's continuing the lineage of a Hayabusa, but not like, yeah, this man's the former this champion, and that is really weird that they did this with La Parca, but they did.
Yeah. For people that did not watch the show, all the announcers talk as if, he's going for his 6th Rey de Reyes, and they do not act like this is a new guy who is recently. They did acknowledge that like last year he was quote unquote resurrected, but this is a gimmick that's been played by multiple people. One of them that's in the last few years has tragically passed away, and to just act like it's one unending. That it's one person that apparently has grown a few inches. And
lost a lot of LBs.
I found that
in death, they lost a lot of pounds too, because this one's much skinnier.
Like, I'm a person that a lot doesn't personally offend me. I have to kind of sometimes extrapolate what offends a person that actually has, is a good person. But like, even this was just a little uncomfortable to just completely like cement over. It wouldn't have been taken anything away. You could have told the story of this is the new La Parca, and he's trying to, start his own legacy. Can he, do what the past ones have, right. And instead, no, it's they for someone that respects real Lucha Libre to just basically act like those people are nothing but fuel for the current person. It is the new Diesel and Razor Ramon-esque, but more offensive.
Right, and not it was pretty gross. I did not like that. I was like, ooh, that is very uncomfortable. Because at first I was like, no way, this La Parca won 5. I had to look it up. They made me look it up for God's sakes. And I was like, no, I knew it wasn't. And I was like, but what? And then I was like, no, wait, this is ridiculous. I cannot believe they're saying this, but. It started off like immediately. They talked about how the legendary La Parca, one of the greatest luchadors of all time, La Parca. They're talking about this La Parca. This La Parca is not one of the greatest luchadors of all time. It's ridiculous. Rey Fénix comes out. JBL says, there's one of the most accomplished luchadors of all time. And I'm like, no, he is not. Rey Fénix is not in any way considered an accomplished luchador. One of the most accomplished luchadors of all time, Rey Fénix. And then Penta comes out. And Corey Grave goes, it's one of the greatest luchadors of all time, JBL. That's Penta. And I'm like, okay, so Rey Fénix is the most accomplished luchador of all time. Penta is one of the great luchadors of all time. They introduced Rey Mysterio as the greatest luchador of all time. And I'm like, okay, well, how is everybody the greatest? Then that's continued. So I had notes about all this because there are so many times throughout the show that they said this guy is the greatest and that guy is the greatest. So we do the Reina de Reyes, the women's title match. Flammer comes out. Trevor, you're not going to believe this. She is one of the greatest luchadoras of all time, and she has an open challenge, and it is answered by Bayley, who, you're not going to believe this, is one of the greatest wrestlers and women's wrestlers of all time. So we are watching. Did you appreciate the history that you were seeing here? Two of the greatest women to ever enter the ring here as the opener 26 minutes into this YouTube video for free. Flammer and It's Bayley.
I would say the two best from JBL on this night, I think at least one that happens in this match, where he says he's been part of SummerSlams, Survivor Series, Royal Rumbles, and WrestleManias, and tonight is a big fight feel like no other. This match, this show.
Yep.
And he said this during the opener. This is, and you know what? I was like, I hate to say this, it's still better than Booker T. But I was like, he is so, JBL is one part just, I'm going to sell everything to you as the biggest thing ever, like the worst of Nitro era Tony Schiavone, and one part I'm going to try and pop myself by referencing like John Stossel getting choked out by Hulk Hogan and Carney. Like it is half for himself, half for the fans he respects the least.
Yeah, at least he's mildly conscious while it's happening. Like Booker, I don't know. Like I really truly believe that you could just replace Booker with a sound machine and it'd be indistinguishable between the two. JBL, sometimes you can replace him with a sound machine because sometimes he's just, when he doesn't really care about something, he just goes, ha ha, I love it. This is incredible. But then there's sometimes where he does try to, like you said, he does try to pop things. Like I think it was either this match or the next match. Somebody got kicked in the teeth and he's like, I better call Isaac Yankum. And it's like the most basic boilerplate, like reference, like wrestling reference he can do. And like you said, hey, he's getting choked out like John Stossel or whatever. So at least there's a mild amount of fun badness to JBL, but yeah, so the hits kept coming. So Penta, one of the greatest luchadors of all time. Rey Fenix, one of the most accomplished luchadors of all time. Rey Mysterio on commentary, the greatest luchador of all time. Flammer, one of the greatest luchadoras of all time. Bayley, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. They were vying for the title. That's one of the most prestigious titles in on women's wrestling history. And Flammer, she's had the title for like 600 days, so it's one of the best reigns in wrestling history. So they have a very kind of normal ass match, and I don't know if this is like a favor to Bayley. I don't know if Bayley's got one foot out the door and she was like, can I work AAA? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Or if they just have nothing else to do with her, so they're moving her to AAA. I don't know where that is in the stage, but yeah, Bayley's fine at this point. They had an okay match, but what the theme through this review is going to be, and the theme for if you watch AAA ever, is nothing matters because it's all just a vehicle to wait for interference. So you're watching these 12-minute matches, 13-minute matches. You don't have to. Nothing matters because people are just going to interfere. And they interfered on every single match in this entire show. Somebody interfered towards the end of the match. So at this point, later in the match, the Los Toxicos or whatever, it was Maravilla and La Hiedra interfered to help Flammer defeat Bayley. So Bayley did not win the Rey de Reyes. I kind of thought, I watched this unspoiled. I did wonder if Bayley was going to win this title just because they wanted to give her something to do. And because they kept talking about how Flammer was like one day away from setting the record. So I was like, oh, that's a perfect story then. Then Bayley ends it, but then she just beat her. So I was like, oh, all right, whatever. So any thoughts on the match itself? But
I thought it was okay. I think at some points it was like, I was thinking, oh, this is not bad. And then at other points I was like, yeah, this is not bad, but a little boring. But you know, at one point on commentary, Rey talks about how he had talked to Bayley before, how excited she was to work in Mexico. And, you know, that could just be him making something up. But, you know, I bet she does seem like a person that really, truly loves wrestling and would like, I think those are the people you want to bring in as guest stars to AAA, are the people that like don't see this as demotion, that they're genuinely excited to get to work. You know, they're a little bit geeky for wrestling. I think those are the people you want. I think the problem with Bayley, obviously, sometimes you watch her now, and I think the mind is there, the spirit is willing, the flesh sometimes, you know, and, you know, sometimes she just can't kind of will her body or keep up with the pace at some points, but other times there'll be moments during this match where I'm like, oh, she's still got a little gas left in the tank, and there'll be other points where I'm like, eh. So, you know, it kind of fades in and out. Flammer's rolling cradle into a double stomp. It's really quick. It's really nice. And I will give credit. I will say this to Bayley. She did a kick out here on a 2 count with her eyes closed. And I feel like we need to shame and keep track of all the wrestlers who just watch the ref like a hawk as they're being counted, because that's one of my big pet peeves, and it's like a growing epidemic. And I appreciate the lost art of not looking at the ref, of guys like Will Ospreay that can kick out at like 2.9999. You know, she didn't kick out 2.99, but she didn't need to watch the ref like a hawk. I'll take the wins I can get. And I guess I'll end on this. I was debating talking about this, but because I don't want to make light of this. It isn't. But since this was on YouTube, it was YouTube was serving me localized ads, during every 10 minutes or whatever during the show. And at one point, I believe after this match, the localized ad I got for this was the Canadian Suicide Crisis Helpline. And I swear on my life, that's the ad I got. I will say I did not need that, YouTube. I thank you for your consideration. It was not that bad. I will say call or text if you live in Canada, 988, if things get overwhelming for you. That was something good to learn. But I did not need that. But I was like, if there was any ad that just is screaming at me at this point, at the end of this match, I'm like, are you sure you're not feeling bad? Are you sure you're okay, Trevor?
That's so good. So what happened? Yeah, definitely your algorithm was like, look, if this man starts watching WWE like full shows, like send him this ad because something has gone very wrong in our man's life. Like that's how good the algorithm has gotten, is that they were like, something's not right with this man. This man would never do this. Why is he watching this show in full?
Yeah. So
send him that ad. Please save a life. So I appreciate that. So what's that number again? We'll repeat that here for
988. Call or text that if you ever need help. It is I would imagine if you text that saying I just watched AAA Rey de Reyes, they might not be happy with that. I would save that for a real emergency, but it is good to know it's there.
I believe it's the same in America as well. 988.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. It's good stuff. I'm glad people do that. But it was just that's the only time in my life I've ever seen that ad.
That's so good. So anyway, Flummer gets the win. Your point about Bayley was great too, because she'll do like a tope and you're like, damn, she's still got it. And then she'll go in the ring and she'll try to run and you're like, oh, she has no knees anymore. She can't run. She can't move.
Yeah.
This is pretty sad. So it's weird. She has like little spots where she could still do just from muscle memory, but then other like the natural stuff seems like it's really a struggle for her these days to kind of move around and operate. And I'm so glad you pointed it out, because I completely forgot to mention this. Rey Mysterio during this match, like you said, he goes, I just talked to Bayley and she said she cannot wait to wrestle in AAA. She's been wanting to wrestle in AAA forever. But Rey forgot that she was the special surprise open challenge, taker or whatever you want to say there. So Corey had to be like, well, how did you know, Rey? How you knew it was Bayley all along? And Rey goes, oh, no, I was just like talking to Bayley about something other than this. Then she brought this up out of nowhere. Like he had to cover, because he was like, oh yeah, shit. She was like the open challenge. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was the surprise. That was really good. But they covered for it well. They covered for it perfectly. So
that was my second favorite Rey commentary moment of the night. We'll get to the first one.
Oh,
later.
Good. Okay. So then we go to the Rey de Reyes final, the most prestigious tournament in wrestling history, for the most prestigious sword in wrestling history, I guess. Grande Americano, the most over person in AAA America, is freaking Grande Americano. Original Grande Americano, the most hated heel in Mexico. Both these are white men under lucha masks. You have La Parka, who is definitely not the original La Parka, not the La Parka that you all know. It is a new La Parka, but we're pretending he's the old La Parka. And then Santos Escobar, who now wears bandanas and drives motorcycles. So, because he needed to get a character. He can't just be a masked luchador. He can't just be an unmasked luchador. He must now be a biker guy. So he's like a cool biker guy. But he does have a torn tricep. So he's not going to be wrestling much anymore after this. He's taking some time away. And that's, I believe he worked this entire match on the torn tricep, which would explain some of his work throughout this match. So it's like an okay match. Like, it's happening and it's like good action. The fans are invested like crazy, because Grande Americano and original Grande Americano are the two most over guys in this entire company. So they're wrestling. They're doing kickouts. They're kicking out. JBL's going, I love it. This is the traditional lucha libre. You know what I mean? Classic, like whatever. And then, of course, we have interference. Grande, they do the loaded headbutt gimmick, but then all the other Americanos come out and interfere. Dr. Wagner 3 comes out and he interferes, and eventually Grande Americano, the new Grande Americano, the one that people like, the babyface Grande Americano, pins Santos Escobar with a loaded headbutt. So he is your Rey de Reyes champion. So Flommer won via taking the interference and then taking the corner pad off and then slamming Bayley's head into it. And then in the Rey de Reyes final, you had a bunch of interference, and then Grande Americano won after hitting Santos with a loaded headbutt. So if you're sensing a trend, you are correct. That is the trend that is happening, because everything has interference and every finish is nefarious.
Yeah, this was a match where I liked it at the start, and by the end, I was less enthused. There was some effort, but I liked the original, the early stuff with La Parca. This was a match that really subscribed to the school of two people in the ring, everyone else just waits for your turn, which is more and more what the multi-person matches are. But there was a moment in this match where Grande has Santos in a submission, the new Grande, and then the classic Americano. He's on the floor closest to the hard camp side, and this is one fall to a finish. And he just calmly walks by, looks at the submission in the ring, and keeps walking, not even caring. And then you wait for like 15 seconds, you realize, he then comes in later to do like a double submission type thing. So he was just like, it's not my time to do something yet. Like, even though this doesn't make sense, I'm not trying to break this up, but then we'll try and break it up 10 seconds later, because he wasn't selling or anything. It was just, again, that more modern wrestling of I wait for my moment and it's not my spot yet. And the new El Grande, Ludwig Kaiser, his punches, some of the worst punches in wrestling today, they are like not a punch, they are maybe the suggestion of a punch. They don't even really seem to attempt to be. He likes to throw them though, and Santos, I feel bad, knowing he worked through an injury, but to criticize anything about his performance in this match, he takes what I would say is one of the more leisurely whips into a buckle you will ever see. It was one of the slowest, most gentle, walking himself into the corner, turning himself around, putting his back there. Not an absolutely terrible match. I noticed, to your point earlier about how much they're trying to make everything like the main roster WWE. They did the Royal Rumble trivia, except for Rey de Reyes before this, with all the stats and numbers, like shamelessly ripped out of that playbook. Like, so, La Parca's the 5-time winner, and this many people have gone on to win the mega title and all this stuff. So, and then of course it all ends with a mysterious masked man, because that's the one idea WWE has in 2026.
right. And he's wearing Santos Escobar's old mask. He's wearing the old mask of Santos Escobar. All right, great. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I forgot to note here, JBL during this match said that this is a life-changing event for someone here tonight. And it's like, you just said La Parca's won 5 of these and he's still in this. Like, it hasn't been that life-changing. Like, if we're to believe that this La Parca is the one that has 5 of these previous, it's like every time that the Elimination Chamber happens, and I always joke about this, where Michael Cole will say, it's a career ending, it'll shorten the careers or whatever. Randy Orton in his 19th Elimination Chamber match, and I'm like, what's not shortening that many careers? Yeah. Liv Morgan's been in 11 of them. Like, she seemed fine. So, but yeah, it's like, this is a life-changing moment, this Rey de Reyes. Someone's going to win this and their lives will be changed forever. But also, this man has won 5 of them and is still in this match. So,
and occasionally when I talk about announcers that do criticize like we have about JBL right now, I'll have people go, well, isn't an announcer's job to hype everything? But I was like, you have to save your punches, because if you hype everything as the biggest, most important thing ever, then nothing is important at all. And, that's why I kind of always had a problem with Mauro Ranallo, where I would complain about him and go, well, isn't he trying to make every match seem as big as possible? I was like, if you call every match like a 10 out of 10, then nothing is a 10 out of 10. And Mauro would bug me the least on the main events, because I was like, his tone of voice actually fit the importance of the match. But the problem is he would use that very similar voice for everything. And JBL is subscribes to that school where he's not yelling like that every match, but he is trying to, like you said earlier, well, everyone in this commentary team, but especially JBL, everything of significance has to be the most significant thing.
Yeah, and it just loses all. Speaking to, we're watching, college basketball's happening right now. That's why Joe's not on the show here. Gus Johnson's like a famous announcer, and he does that too. Like, somebody will hit a 3 at the beginning of the opening round of the NCAA tournament, and he's like, the 3's in! Unbelievable shot! And it's like, brother, you got to hold that. You got to wait. Like, let's calm down, man. That's the first 3 in a game. Like, you gotta ease into this. But he just does that the entire time, and it loses. He doesn't, when the big moments actually happen, he doesn't feel very special anymore. Whereas real announcers understand, okay, that 3 at the beginning of the game, I have to have a certain voice for that. But if that same shot happens and it wins the game with time running off the clock or whatever, that's when I do that. That's when I need that big voice. I can't have the big voice for everything. And we've lived through this experience. Anybody that's been a wrestling fan for any amount of time lived through the experience of Tony Schiavone being told by Eric Bischoff, hey, you have to be more passionate on commentary, and him saying, fuck you, fine. This is the greatest match ever. This is the greatest moment ever. This is an unbelievable episode of Raw or Nitro. This is the best episode of Nitro ever. That man's the best star ever. That was him joke, like being like, fuck you, you want some energy? I'll give you some energy. I'll be an asshole the entire time and just say that everything's great. And we ridiculed it and we made fun of it, and we should, because that's how you should not. The announcer's job isn't to hype everything. The announcer's job is to hype the things that deserve to be hyped properly, not just go to 10 out of 10 every time, like you said.
A huge part of announcers, like of the art of announcing, is the 7 out of 10 call, right? Like you got to announce something that's pretty good. I always remember there was an interview I saw a clip of, I think Bryan Cranston did with Conan O'Brien, and he said his whole thing was, as an actor, if I'm a good actor, I can raise like a movie script 1 letter grade above what it is. So like if I get a B script, my performance maybe can elevate that into like a B plus movie, or so his whole point was, if I do a C movie, if I get a C script, it doesn't matter how good I am, I'm not going to be able to turn that into an A movie. I feel like as an announcer, you got to use that same mindset where you can announce everything as 1 degree better than it actually is. If something's good, you could say it's very good. If something's very good, you could say it's great. If it's great, you can say it's one of the best things you've seen in recent years, all that stuff. And there are some announcers that their school of thought is everything is A plus. My job is to call every segment as A plus. And that doesn't work. Your job is to call everything, I would say, as probably you can't call anything lower than a C. I don't think as bad as something can be, you probably can't just say it's a piece of shit. But generally your job is take whatever it is, call it a little better.
For sure. Yeah. And I think it's a thing that WWE does to an annoying degree, but it's also a thing that a lot of people do. If you're on social media of any, like that's kind of the thing now, is just to pretend that everything is the greatest and everything is 10 out of 10. And it makes it all like just so empty and worthless. But yeah, you'll have like, especially younger fans. I found younger wrestling fans will do this. Like a match will happen, like that's the greatest match of all time, and I'm like, what is your frame? Like your frame of reference is like the last 2. Like I would never have that confidence. I would never have that confidence when I was 12 years old to watch freaking Over the Edge 1998 with Dude Love and Steve Austin, and be like, that is the greatest professional wrestling match that has ever happened. Like, I don't know, it maybe is the best match I've ever seen, but I've probably seen not that much wrestling in my life. Like, but now all of it is, you have to be hyperbolic because that's what gets attention, that's what gets eyeballs. And WWE, like, they want their announcers to present everything as the biggest deal ever. But like you said, they're just doing it to it's such an annoying degree on these AAA shows to just kind of overcompensate. And yeah, we're at a point now where we have 5 people so far have been the greatest luchadors of all time, and then I think during this match they did some Eddie Guerrero, or maybe it was during the main event or whatever, they did some Eddie Guerrero thing. And, because of course it's a wrestling show in 2026, we have to do 3 amigos and then everybody has to chant Eddie. And Eddie Guerrero, one of the greatest luchadors of all time. It's like, okay, so everybody's the greatest luchador. Who's not the greatest luchador of all time? Like, give me a name. Give me one name of a man who is not the greatest luchador of all time. I would love to hear it. Because then we get to our main event, which is Dominic Mysterio versus El Hijo del Vikingo. Vikingo, he's a multiple-time AAA mega champion. He's one of the most accomplished luchadors of all time. Like you said, Rey Fenix was one of the most accomplished luchadors of all time. Like, it can't be both. And then there's Dom Mysterio, who is, one of the... I think JBL said nobody has taken to wrestling quicker than Dom Mysterio has taken to wrestling. And I was like, brother, he was in NXT. He was fucking around in the main roster thing for like 5 years until he got good. Like, that was horrible. We saw him in 2020. He was not good at all. The man did not take... Like Goldberg. Goldberg was wrestling for 6 months and became the biggest star in wrestling. Like, what are we talking about? No one has taken to wrestling quicker than Dom Mysterio has. Really? Are we sure about that? Jun Akiyama, are we sure? Are we sure we want to go with Dom Mysterio as the man who has taken to wrestling quicker than anyone's ever taken to wrestling? And again, JBL just says things. I shouldn't care. We shouldn't care, but I'm an idiot, so I care. But anyway, this is a WWE match, so we have. Yeah. Sorry. Did you have anything else to say? And then I can get. I was just saying,
I didn't write this one down, but I'm pretty sure at this point, JBL also said that Dorian Roldan was the great. He made a point to say this was not just the greatest mind in AAA, but the greatest mind in all of professional wrestling.
Oh, Dorian Roldan, indeed. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh God. So that has to be a rib, right? Maybe he doesn't know. You know what? He doesn't know. He doesn't know anything about Dorian Roldan. He doesn't care. He doesn't know or care anything about it.
Yeah.
All right. So then we get the AAA Mega title. It is a no disqualification match, and this is a WWE owned company now. So They wrestle perfunctory for about a minute and a half. Dom rolls out of the ring and grabs a kendo stick, a WWE kendo stick from under the ring. Vikingo grabs a WWE black chair from under the ring. Then they grab the normal steel trash can that nobody in the world uses. Nobody has used one of those kind of trash cans in years. And there's a trash can lid, and we hit each other with the trash can lid. Vikingo puts Dom in the trash can and hits it with the kendo stick, so it makes a lot of noise. You have seen this exact match 1,000 times in your life, and it is just the absolute worst possible way to use a man like Vikingo ever, is to just have him hit people with chairs and kendo sticks. But that's what we do in a WWE no disqualification match, and that's what all of wrestling would do in a no disqualification match, is hit each other with kendo sticks and chairs and trash cans or whatever. And then you're not gonna believe this, Trevor. A bunch of people interfered. Dorian Roldan interferes. But then Dominic gets his hand on Dorian Roldan, and then he calls in Omos, and then Omos comes out, and then he interferes. And then that's not enough. Then Mini Vikingo, do you know the whole story with Mini Vikingo and Vikingo?
No, I do not.
Yeah, you don't need to know. Anyway, there's a Mini Vikingo, and Vikingo beat him up in the hospital bed. They did a thing. They did like the like Vince McMahon getting beaten in the hospital. They had Vikingo go to the hospital and beat up Mini Vikingo. Traditional lucha libre, I love it. This is it. At one point, by the way, JBL said, this is traditional lucha libre, I love it. And Rey Mysterio goes, you bet it is. This is it, traditional lucha libre. And I was like, fuck you, Rey Mysterio. Fuck you. Traditional lucha libre, my ass. These men are hitting each other with kendo sticks. Fuck off. This is traditional lucha libre. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. God, have some pride. Have some fucking pride in your life. Jesus Christ. But anyway, Mini Vikingo, I forget what he did, but that helps Dom pin. So if you're keeping count, yes, weapon shots and copious interference lead to the Dom Mysterio retaining the mega title. So
yeah, just the interference from Omos, and yeah, this was like some of my least. This was what, overall. I was watching the show, and until this match, I was like, you know what, better than NXT, and this is what I was alluding to earlier. By the end of the show, I was like, it's getting close, because yeah, this is everything I hate about WWE, where, like you were saying, it just takes what you want in wrestling and it forces it into the WWE container, where it doesn't play to the strengths of Vikingo at all. It is just, hey, we are going to do a gimmick match at this point because that's what we do at this stage of a feud. We are going to bring out a couple low-level pieces of plunder because that's what we do. There'll be such a slow pace between everything here. Then we're going to have our million run-ins that tie into our incredibly compelling stories. And then we're over. And it was just getting the least out of everybody involved. But it did have my favorite Rey Mysterio commentary thing, which was Rey is like, on this show, credit to him, he does not try and force extra enthusiasm all the time, but sometimes he tries to yes and has nothing, which I can relate to. So there's a point in this match where after they get the kendo sticks and the garbage cans out from under the bottom of the ring, and I think it's JBL, it might be Corey Graves, but I think it was JBL who said, "Wouldn't you like a picture of what's under that ring?" And there's a small pause, and Rey just says in a monotone voice, "That would be great," and they just move on. Yeah, who wouldn't want to see a picture of what's under the ring? And there was a couple great awkward moments. Like I think during the first match on the show, there's a moment where Bailey got crotched on the ring post by Flammer, and Graves says, that jammed Bailey's tailbone, and you hear a pause and some kind of sound like someone clearing their throat or trying not to laugh, and then there's a period of awkward silence, and then Graves just goes, "Unique offense," and they move on.
Yeah, Rey is not polished as a commentator at all. He's there to translate for the Mexican promo, the 25-minute promos at the beginning. But he is not a natural, and like you said, he does not play off the other guys very well at all. He is kind of in his own little world. And I do remember that now that you mentioned it, where JBL was like, "Wouldn't you love to see underneath that ring?" And Rey's, "I would." Yes, I would. It's like, You got to give us a little more in that, Ray. Like, say that's chaos under there. I've seen. By the way, like you've been a wrestler for many years. You've probably looked under that ring. Maybe give us some insights as to what the ring looks like. Yes, I would. Yeah, it's so good.
I'm going to assume it's more of what we saw just now, and also that Dorian Roldan run in. The sharpest mind in pro wrestling. It was an incredibly late pin break where they had already kicked out, and then he like hits.
Yeah, it was so late.
He's
so bad.
And the announcers just sold it like, no, he was perfectly on time. And it was just, it was the one thing he had to do the entire night. And he screwed up as bad as you could do. I don't think I think he just hit Vikingo, his wrestler, not even Dom. So yeah, this was the worst part of the show to me, this match. Even worse than the 20-minute promo that said 3 minutes worth of things.
It's just galling. If you watch this, it's pretty galling because it's like Dom Mysterio and Vikingo. If this is traditional lucha libre, you can close your eyes and imagine that could be a pretty good match. That could be kind of fun, but it's like, and this is what's so troubling about this, and why Joe and I have warned people why you should be very, very worried about this. This is the match. This is the greatest example of it. Is this match you could have replaced Vikingo and Dom Mysterio with any? You could name 1,000 WWE superstars and insert 2 of them in there, and they could have this exact same match, beat for beat, with no difference whatsoever. Like they have taken whatever was special about Vikingo, and whatever Dom can do, and whatever would happen in a AAA mega title, whatever would happen in a Rey de Reyes title main event on a big show in front of a hot crowd. This crowd was hot, and they loved it, and they loved all the action that was happening all night, and they made it a WWE main event. They're hitting each other with kendo sticks and trash can lids, and people are interfering. And it's so. And if people might say, oh, AAA was trash, and before that, and they would do. I'm telling you, watch this match. You know it because you watched this. This was just a beat for beat checkbox WWE no disqualification main event. Again, you could have had any number of people could have done this exact match. You and I could have done this match. They did nothing.
Yeah.
They did nothing in this that necessitated the need of having any pro wrestling skills. Nothing.
And that's the going back to the well-oiled machine thing, which is it's just all these brands now are just variations on the exact same formula because they think that's the only formula that matters. It's the only one that could possibly work. And so now it's just like, do you want to watch it do you want to watch the formula with experienced big time stars? Then watch the main brand. Do you want to watch it with like rough around the edges or younger talent that's coming up? Watch NXT. Do you want to watch it with some more lucha talent from like a slightly different crowd setting? Watch AAA, but it's all just slight variations on the same formula now.
Yeah. It's horrifically depressing. Very, very depressing. Joel Lanza made an appearance in the chat room saying, Rich, let multi-device users know that 01 is airing on YouTube for free right now. The first 4 matches, the semi-main and the main, are paywalled. So I guess if you're listening to this and you're on multiple devices, you can go to 01's YouTube channel and watch the free. Who's not doing WWE bullshit? 01. That's where we got to go to watch something that's just not the same old shit. But there you go, folks. That is Rey de Reyes and NXT's Booker T appreciation night. So we got about an hour left here, a little under an hour. So we could just kind of go in a bunch of different directions here, whichever way you want to go, if there's anything on your mind. Obviously, I want to talk about Revolution a little bit because we had obviously the show on Sunday, 2.5 hours, instant reaction live. You can go to $10 tier, flagshippatreon.com to listen to Joe and I recap and review that. So we're not going to review Revolution here, but I did see you talk with a lot of people online and having discussions about the Hangman stipulation, the stipulation that if Hangman Page lost the main event on Revolution, that he would no longer be able to challenge for the AEW World title for the rest of his career or whatever. It was his word or whatever that he would never challenge again for that title. And I saw you kind of discussing that with people and having some, not necessarily arguments. I think there are productive discussions about that stipulation. What do you make of that stipulation? What do you think that, do you think it was a good idea for them to go to that level? Do you think that there's some interesting stories you could tell with that? Like, what is your initial thoughts when you heard that stipulation was going to happen? And then obviously your thoughts after Sunday when it became, that Hangman lost, and it's like, oh, okay, now we have to either uphold this situation or throw it away in short order. Like, what were your thoughts on the entire Hangman thing?
My initial thoughts was I was pretty confident that when I heard that stipulation that, oh, Hangman's going to lose this. And my thought was maybe Hangman, maybe he even was like, I have no inside knowledge at all, but but maybe Hangman was even like, you know what, after that last run, I didn't really get a lot of runway there. Maybe, because there was that story of that Hangman and Ospreay were like fighting over who should win, and they were each fighting for the other guy going into the world title match against Moxley at All In last year. So I thought Hangman's the kind of guy that would argue, you know what, I don't need to be in the main events anymore. And I was like, I don't think that's good. And then it happens, and I think the things people talk about a lot, there's been a lot of talk this week since the pay-per-view about, he can come back as a heel. There's been rumors that he could be a heel, and you could come up with a storyline justification for him to break this rule. I mean, Tony Khan stressed in the announcement that just like Cody, it was a handshake deal. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a contractional thing.
It was his word or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is, I think there's a couple problems with that. One, I think even if in storyline you can always in wrestling write a good storyline reason. Even as a babyface, you could write a reason for it. He could win some match for a title shot or something, or something could fall into his lap somehow. You can always write your way out of anything in wrestling. That's the magic of wrestling. But the thing is, fans, there's the promise the wrestler made, and there's the promise the promotion made, and there is no way to write yourself out of the promise the promotion made. Fans might forgive it. I don't think it's the end of the world for AEW or its relationship with its fans by any way if they break the promise one time. But I think one of the reasons why the Hangman and MJF match on pay-per-view had so much juice was because the only other time they ever did the stipulation with Cody, they stuck to it. Now, whether they would have stuck to it forever if Cody had stuck around, who knows? But the way things played out, it did. So I think people were interested extra because of the feeling of where if they break it and then they want to go to this or a similar kind of stipulation ever again, it's not going to be dead, but it's going to, you've undercut it a bit, because there will be back of people's minds. Well, they've shown now a willingness that if they really want to, they will write themselves out. And obviously this is all arguments based on complete hypotheticals. Maybe they will never write their way out of this. Who knows? And the other thing was the idea of, I see a lot of people just talking about, this will be a great heel arc for Hangman. This will be a great way to get heel heat. And I was just thinking, if Hangman, fights for the world title again, I don't think people are going to be going, boo, you're a hypocrite. Like in storyline, you should be feeling that way maybe, but I think that will be greatly outweighed in fans' minds compared to a guy we really like is fighting it for the biggest, most important thing in the promotion we like. So I don't think he'll get the kind of, maybe, again, I could be completely wrong. There's always a way to make things work in a certain direction, but I feel like it'll be more of a challenge than people would think.
I thought the point you brought up there was good, and that's kind of why I saw you mention this on Twitter, and that's why I wanted to kind of bring it up here on this show, is that you mentioned the idea that we as like nerdy wrestling fans are crossing our arms, and it's like, you can't, go back on the stipulation. Like, we're all going to know that the company went back on the stipulation. And yeah, that might be what we say, and then the pundits might say, and people that are reviewing stuff might say. But I feel like most fans aren't going to be like, you didn't withhold your part of the, stipulation. I think most fans are going to be like, hell yeah, Hangman Page can chance for the title again or whatever. However they get to there. Now, obviously you have to do something. You have to do a decent job of explaining it. It can't just be like, one day, like in 2 months, he's like, yeah, I'm just going to go for the title again. And Tony Khan said I could or whatever. It's got to be, you got to tell a decent story. But I thought, to your point, like, I don't think many fans are going to be sitting there cross-armed and going, oh, that's bullshit. He said he wasn't going to do it ever again, and now he's doing it again. I think most fans would if it's done well or told well, would accept that as a story and accept that as, okay, cool. For whatever reason, he's been taken to a limit where now he, is willing to. A lot of people said the easy thing to do is like, all right, look, I'll put my career on the line. If I don't win this match, I'll put my career on the line or whatever. You put me in, give me one more title match, and if I don't win this, then yeah, I'll never wrestle again or whatever. And you could do that. Again, don't do that at like, Double or Nothing. Don't do that at All In or whatever. But yeah, in a couple of years, I think you can do that stipulation. I don't think fans are going to really be upset about that. And I don't think the promotion is going to feel like you can't trust any stipulation they ever do ever again, because Hangman will challenge for the title again via whatever means they do it. Like, there's a cheap way to do it. Again, yeah, if you did it right away, then of course. But if you wait a little bit, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. So some people are freaking out about it. I'm really not.
Well, the only other thing I'll say is the only other negative to this, I would say, is, Hangman's a babyface. He was a babyface entering this feud. And, you know, baby faces can lose clean to heels sometimes. It should happen occasionally. But, you know, he got everything he wanted here. He got his challenge. He fought in his kind of match. And he lost completely clean and completely definitive after he offered up the stipulation. And I feel like, again, it's another thing where there's no absolutes in wrestling. You can get away with that. But for, you know, his base of fans already, you know, feeling like, you know, he didn't get maybe – you look at the MJF reign, and he's been given this bevy. It's worked out. You know, he's got this incredible lineup of challengers. He's feuding with like 3 guys at once. It's a great setup reign for him. Where Hangman, you know, his reign, it was just circumstance where, you know, Ospreay and Swerve were hurt at that point when he won the title, but although they were also faces, so would they have even worked him? But anyway, you know, some fans were already like unhappy with how it played out in his quick loss, and now you have him lose as a face. You know, I don't always. I feel like if you have your face make this big bold claim and put everything on the line on a very high profile match to a heel, and then have him lose clean, I really hope they have a good follow up to this. I hope they make this count somehow, because that's a big thing to give. I don't think you want a face to do that very often. A big face.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's an important step, and I think that's the big difference that I've kind of had about this is I don't think it's the end of the world. I've seen some people think that it's like a terrible idea and they just, you know, rushed into this just to sell pay-per-views for this one time or whatever, and if they never do this again, it's a terrible idea because it didn't work with Cody and yada yada. And I agree, and I get that. I get all that. But I do also think that if it's a stipulation that it's an important stipulation, and it's a very it's a stipulation that has to be treated with a lot of care. And that's where I at least want to give them the benefit of the doubt and see how they navigate it, what they do with it. I think AEW has deserved that. It deserves that benefit of the doubt because they have upheld a lot of their stipulations. They haven't usually fucked up any stipulations or really, you know, turned their back on any of them. So I think if treated with some care and given some real purpose to it and given some real understanding about it and just understanding that we cannot turn back on this right away, but we can turn back on this at some point with the right story, and the fans won't reject it outwardly, and pundits and people won't look at it as we, you know, kind of a bait and switch in a sense. And that would happen if you did this in like 2 months or 3 months or whatever. I don't think that would happen in 2-3 years again with the right story. So I'm fascinated by it. I can't wait to see how they kind of wiggle their way out of it, because I truly don't believe, and I guess I could pose this question to you and then we'll move on. Like, do you think that Hangman will never challenge for this title ever again, or do you think he will?
I think I would put it at, like, without any inside information, because I'm not that kind of guy, but like I would put it at 70-30. He'll probably challenge for it again. I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if he never did, but I would put, if I had to pick, I would say he's probably going to challenge for it again. I guess one of my concerns is AEW is generally very good at like you were saying, they generally keep the steps, and they're very good usually at the big moment, the big idea when they get to it. They're a much more mixed record about having the follow-up for the big idea. They're good at identifying a guy who needs a big win, eventually giving them the big win. They're not so good at the 2 to 3 months of booking plans after the big win. You know, and that would be my one concern is, how much do they got planned out for this? How long ahead are they thinking about this? And maybe they are, you know, from what we've heard, he's going to take a bunch of time off, or at least some time off. Who knows when they come back, like what he enters. Because sometimes in AEW, when a guy takes a leave for a while, they kind of just go back. They don't pick up where they left off. They go in a different direction sometimes.
Yeah, I'm definitely fascinated to see how they kind of make this all work in the future. But yeah, anything else from Revolution? Obviously, we did a review already on Instant Reaction Live. Anything that you took away from that show on Sunday? Anything that I know you always cover the post-show scrums. There wasn't really much there worth noting, including the great question of, Tony, do you have any international pay-per-views coming up? And he goes, yes, I do. I was like, we have a billionaire that owns a professional wrestling company that's standing here taking questions. And one of your questions are, do you have any upcoming international pay-per-views coming up? And he says, yes. In fact, next month's Dynasty is in British Columbia. And it's like, great. And all in well.
Yeah.
God, it infuriates you. How does it not make you so mad? Of all the questions.
It does. It's funny because when I do those things now, I've had reporters at those things apologize to me in DMs, which makes me feel bad. But and usually it's not the people that should be apologizing. If anyone should be apologizing, especially no one needs to apologize to me. But like, yeah. Overall, I thought it was a really good pay-per-view. You know what? No one ever says about these pay-per-views is that they're so long, but I think
you should talk about that. Yeah, that's a good discussion point. Bring it up.
No, it's just I thought it was a very good show, and yeah, about the long thing, I mean that's done to death. I was just joking, but I will say if you have to err on one side or the other, err on the side of giving people too much than too little. Yeah,
for sure. We'd rather be overserved than very, very underserved as we are with the other company, which very, very incredibly underserved by them. So one thing that I want to talk about, maybe this might be it for us. We'll see, because it might be a lot of discussion here on your Patreon, which we'll plug that right now. You had a great article not that long ago about the need and desire, and it kind of relates to what we talked about with our NXT review, where they make sure that anytime someone comes on screen, they are addressed as, oh, hi, Jada Parker. Oh, hey, Kalani Jordan. Like, so you know who everybody is, and you know all the stories because they're very well laid out and they tell you everything about it. And it relates to video packages and replays and promo packages and that sort of stuff. And you kind of talked about it on your Patreon, which what's the whole URL there that we can get out there for people to follow?
It's www.patreon.com/mecca. So it's MECCA twice in a row.
People might not understand why that is. So do you want to let people know what your past life was? Well, your even more embarrassing past life.
I recently have updated like a new thing that kind of explains what the Patreon was. And basically I used to write humorous things about a TNA forum called TNA Mecca that turned into a very weird thing, including the owner faking his death, and then coming back and pretending to be his brother.
What was the dumb argument that he just had to jump in on? It was also like the dumbest thing that he decided to break his "I'm dead" thing. It was do you remember what it was?
Oh, he just couldn't get he pretended to be multiple people, both his sister and his brother, and he couldn't stand watching the message board be run by somebody else, even though I think he was kind of burnt out on TNA and pretending that he loved TNA, to not lose like an argument that he had been having for years with other people. But I wrote that articles for years. I got a weird cult following to that, enough to have a Patreon that paid a couple of bills for a while. A lot of that stuff, I think some of my funniest and most insightful writing is buried in that stuff. And a lot of it, I think it kind of predates the modern kind of just hating on things as a vocation. And even though I feel like I tried to be fairer than people that do that today are, and tried to give them more props and had certain kind of ethical guidelines, I'm still not entirely happy with having done that, even though again I am proud of some of the writing there. So basically, if you look at my Patreon, the first year of it is nothing but that, and it's all paywalled. And after that, I kind of felt that had run its course, and everything since then is just me sporadically, whenever I feel like writing about wrestling. That's where I just put thoughts. And I've been doing that for years. And most of that stuff, I'm not, no guarantee that I don't put it behind the Disney vault one day or something, but most of it right now is 100% free. So if you go to that Patreon now, if like most people, you are not interested in that weird thing I got into a long time ago, that stuff I haven't done in years, and it's all the furthest stuff back. So basically just start the most recent stuff, and it's all free mostly. I think most of it is. And scroll until you get to that stuff, and then you can stop and not have to worry that you're missing anything, because there's a very clear line between when I did that stuff and when I did this stuff. So it's just whenever something annoys me enough that I feel like writing about it, I go, oh, this is a place I can write.
And you do great writing as well. So, yeah, I definitely recommend people patreon.com/Mecca. And, the stuff that you did back in the TNA Mecca days, we had some weird run-ins with the TNA Mecca people as well. So I think that's how we initially crossed paths. Me and Joe and you the Mecca people did not like us at all either for a multitude of different reasons, mostly related to, we didn't unabashedly love TNA all the time. And they got very upset about that. So.
You made the big dog growl a couple times.
Yeah, my man, the big dog. Do you know what he's doing these days? Do you keep tabs on the big dog? Okay.
I have gleeful. Once I was done, I was done.
That's probably for the better.
I have no. Yeah. But
you don't need to know about. Nobody should know what Chris Regal and the big dog are doing in 2026. So you are a smart man.
You know what? I honestly hope they're doing okay.
I hope so too.
And.
They can't enjoy this current iteration of TNA, right? But then again, they enjoyed every iteration of TNA, so it's possible. But there was a certain brand of TNA that they seem to really enjoy, and I don't know if they enjoy this current TNA, but maybe they do.
Well, the thing is, if you liked, I would be fascinated about the idea of long-term TNA fans, because I've always said TNA is like the ship of Theseus, where over time it's replaced every single thing about it. So, like, if you're a fan that you've been a fan of TNA since the beginning to now, it's completely different. Like, if you look at the early TNA fans, a lot of them were TNA. A lot of early TNA fans were, I think some of them were WCW refugees, which they were like the classic anyone but WWE fans. I maybe even want something that's kind of like WWE, but I don't want to support WWE. Maybe I want something like the X division that harkens back to the cruiserweight division of WCW. And there were some, fans that were drawn by like the big indie names they could get in. They brought in a lot of great talent and just wanted an alternative. But now, like, if you're a fan of TNA today, you are watching a product that is your worst. The TNA fan of, say, 2005, the TNA of today is their worst fears realized. It's in bed with WWE. It's subservient to WWE. It's a product that's just like WWE, staffed by a lot of people from WWE. And so I feel like there has to have been a lot of fan changeover, because if there hasn't been, I am fascinated by that, how you could keep that kind of continuity for 20 plus years.
It would just be like blind loyalty to this company, but the company has changed so much that what are you loyal to? Like the everybody that's run the company, everybody that works for the company, everything about it, like you said, how it looks, how it feels, how it's presented, who runs it, who wrestles in it, everything has changed. So you're just like weirdly loyal to this company. Very strange. Yeah, I would love to get in the mind of somebody that has gone through all the ups and downs, because I tend to think that there probably isn't anybody that's done the whole gamut of like day one to today. I bet a lot of those people have either jumped off. Like a lot of the big dog Chris Regal era, that was really like they really cut their teeth during like the Hogan Bischoff era, and then they kind of hung around during like the Destination America early era, and then
the Pop TV era was the one that really started to put the screws to where you could see them going, oh, how much
do we really still like this? Are we sure? I know we do. We say we do, but do we really? And then you could tell that they didn't. Little by little, they didn't.
But I would take the Pop TV era over today's TV.
Oh God, yes. Fun Dad again. Fun Dad. The Pop TV.
Yeah, and there were some occasional bright spots there. Yeah. There wasn't all bad back then, but yeah, it is just a crazy saga that thing was.
But your most recent article was titled, and I will read, Recap. In case you missed it, the title of this article was Recap, which I find a fantastic headline, because the idea here is really you taking umbrage with the idea that a lot of wrestling pundits, particularly you use Brian Alvarez from Wrestling Observer Radio, which, by the way, if you want more on Trevor Dame, on his thoughts on the current state of Wrestling Observer Radio and F4WOnline.com. This week's Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast on the Voice of Wrestling Podcast Network has plenty of that, because that was the entire topic that you guys talked about, was the SEOification of the Wrestling Observer and F4WOnline.com. So definitely recommend checking that out. But I thought it was a really good article talking about just this incessant talking point that there's not enough recaps and there's not enough videos, particularly AEW. Everybody looks at AEW and says, when I watch an episode of AEW, I don't know what's going on because there's no recaps and there's no videos and they don't tell me what's going on. And if I miss a week, it feels like I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what's going on. Where are the recaps? Where are the videos? So what we're trying to kind of get across in that article, and why should maybe people check that out, and just overall thoughts about the desire that a lot of pundits have. And it's not just Brian, it's many of them as well, but Brian is kind of the most prominent of guys complaining that there's not enough recaps on AEW television.
Well, I guess the big thing that by time it wasn't my intention when I started writing. It was just that Brian has that talking point every month, and then we get like a few days of internet discourse about it, and it's the same argument. So I was finding like I don't think my writing is particularly like that was very rushed, probably not properly edited. I was just like, I want to get this out of my system because I've seen this argument so often. But by the end of the article, like the focus of the article at the front was I'll get into it a little bit, was about how technology is different. The times are different where people have way more access to catching up on things. But by the end of the article, I think I kind of got to this point of like, I think my bigger problem is we're constantly, a lot of people, interpreting everything from what this mythical casual fan wants, as if there's only one kind of casual fan, and what would be easy for them to understand what they like and what they don't like. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I don't know if anyone, especially any of us, know what that fan wants. And again, I think there's more than one type of casual fan, and it's almost like infantilizing people of like, oh, we have to make everything as simple as possible. And it just really started to annoy me. Like, and I started to feel like, is the way Brian thinks, I don't want to put words in his mouth, he's got his own arguments, but he's in his 50s. And I think I'm between you and Joe in terms of age group. So you might, I don't know if you're on the borderline of this, but when I was a kid, like, it was important to recap things, because if you didn't recap something, if it was important, you had no way of getting back to it. When I was a little kid watching wrestling, I think I started watching wrestling in late 93, early 94. When I was a little kid, we didn't have the internet back then. It was, probably someone had the internet, but we didn't. If there was something that you didn't know about wrestling on a show, you had to hope you had a friend that had watched the show you had missed, or you'd have to wait months for that show to come out if it was a pay-per-view on VHS, or you'd have to wait even about as long, a few months, for the wrestling magazines to catch up, or you just had to live with not knowing. You were solely reliant in those first few months after any angle on the announcers keeping you up to speed if you had missed it. And nowadays, nothing is like that, where you can find anything you want, and we've seen with the YouTube, like AEW and WWE, they cut everything, every major angle on the shows into free clips that are on almost instantly after their major shows go on. And a lot of those clips outdraw the goddamn shows if it's for a big angle, and I guess the thing that set me off was Brian said, I shouldn't have to look anything up because I don't want to do my homework. I don't want to have to do homework. And I just feel like that is such a joyless, dismissive way where, like, there are a lot of things I don't get watching wrestling or anything in life. And there are things where, like, I don't understand it. And if I'm really interested, I'll look it up. And if I'm not interested, I just move on and go, okay, that's one thing I don't understand. I don't need to know everything. And I feel like a recent Brian Alvarez for a few years, we talked about it on Jesse show on the Gentleman's Podcast. It was, Brian seems pretty joyless. Like, this is a job for him at this point. And the idea that, like, oh, I have to watch more wrestling is the worst possible thing. And I just feel like you can't extrapolate that over a fan, a new fan. I just feel like, oh, they're going to roll their eyes and go, if I don't know something, I'm going to throw up my hands there, because pro wrestling, the world's hardest to understand form of entertainment,
It's wrestling.
I can't get it. I need a parent's help. I can't do this. And it's just, I feel like, but then at the end of the article, I was also like, maybe he's right. Because sometimes, people are dumb. A lot of times I overestimate people's intelligence. So maybe I am open to the idea that Brian is right. And that is, AEW should do 15 more minutes of highlight videos, and maybe they would do better if they did everything like NXT, where every wrestler just states every single thing, reminds you who they are every segment. But I also feel like if you shave off every sharp edge a product has, you end up with something so smooth that nobody fucking sticks to it. And if you try and baby proof everything, I don't like. I guess the last thing I'll say is this, and I'll give it to you because I've been droning on. But
you're good. No, it's perfect. Yeah.
This is a thing I didn't put in my article, but I've been thinking about this, which is so much of what a lot of wrestling pundits do is they view everything from will this attract or turn off a casual fan? Like the end of Revolution, we get that anytime AEW does a really violent matches, will the needle through the mouth turn someone off? Blah, blah, will this. And I've come to the conclusion that, guess what? Anything, you can find a fiction, a real fan somewhere where anything you say, this will be too hard for them to understand, or this will turn them off, this will be too violent for them. You can find a fan where that's true, but they never think of the opposite, which is maybe that's outweighed by the number of fans where it either it'll be a net neutral, it won't bother them or excite them, or the fans that excite them. Like the anecdote I'll give is, we've been revisiting this on through the years. One of the fun things about doing that podcast is rereading the newsletters and getting to see where, people got it right and where people got it wrong. And I don't begrudge people for getting it wrong, because boy, if you looked at anything, predictions I made about anything, I'd have gotten a lot of them wrong. But one thing we have read recently in like the 2006, 2007 Observers would be Dave occasionally talk about Kevin Steen, or, Kevin Owens today. And Dave would go, there'd be a few times where Dave would have this whole thing where he'd go, man, Kevin Steen's so talented. I don't know why he just doesn't lose weight, because that's going to completely, he's never going to get a big league job, and I remember feeling at the time, I was almost like feeling like I knew that WWE, I didn't think that WWE should feel that way, but I was like, WWE should feel that way. WWE does feel that way. Yeah. So I kind of felt like, I was like, yeah, I feel kind of, similar to a lesser degree and all that. But then as the years went on, Steen proved everyone wrong. And I was like, that none of that stuff is real. That was all just, we're worrying about what some fictional fan thinks, that no one really felt that way. And then I remember I was watching wrestling, which I normally don't do in front of non-wrestling fans. I was some family gathering and I was watching something. It was like, I forget when, it was many years ago, but it was when Steen was already into WWE. It was either his NXT run or early in his WWE run. And someone walks by and they say the exact things everyone would be afraid that someone would say. They weren't a wrestling fan, but they said, that guy's a wrestler. Yep. He's wearing a t-shirt and look at the stomach. And they said all the things.
My wife, the first time she ever watched him, she said, that guy's a wrestler. He's fat. He looks like you. And I was like, well, hold on a minute. but that was her point. It was like, yeah, he's like the same body as you and he's a wrestler. What the fuck? Like and she could never get past that with him. Anytime he'd come out.
But and I guess the point when I was thinking about that after writing that article was, the worst fears when you filter everything from, will this turn off somebody? Will this turn off a casual fan? Will this turn off a prospective new viewer? They're usually true to somebody. But guess what? It didn't matter if the nurse or relatives of mine felt that way, because there were a lot more people that looked past it or were like, I don't care. This guy fucking rocks. It did not stop him from being a major star, from main eventing multiple WrestleManias, from selling a lot of merch, from having a ton of fans, from drawing ratings, from all of that. And so this idea of like, does this turn off a fan? Will this lack of recast be too confusing to somebody? It's like, the answer is always yes to somebody, but that argument is useless if you don't quantify how many that is.
Right. Yeah, it's the casual fan is one of the things that I just it boils my it cannot just I hate the idea of. And it's I think it's just an easy win for a lot of wrestling pundits, because it's just an easy thing that you can say. If you're trying to fill time, you have nothing interesting to say, you just say, well, what is the casual fan? What are they going to think about that? And if you're an idiot on Twitter, it's an easy thing to say is, well, the casual fan isn't going to. If I was a wrestling company or wrestling promoter, I would never care about the quote unquote casual fan. This hypothetical. The problem is too, it's this hypothetical corncob person that watches wrestling but doesn't really care enough about it to ever actually learn anything about wrestling, and then they need everything done in a perfectly sanitized. Like, I don't think, like you said, there's probably somebody that's that way, but I don't think there's enough people that need that to happen. And I mean, I'm just taking it from my experience, and I'm probably a very different person than a lot of people, and I'm sure you're maybe a little different than a lot of people as well in the way that we consume media or we consume stuff. But when I first started watching wrestling, I didn't know anything about wrestling. I just turned it on one day and I started watching it. I didn't know what the fuck was happening. I wasn't, but something clicked. Something made me say, I should watch this next week. And then I watched it next week, and the week after that, and the week after that, and the week after that. And then I started to learn more about wrestling. And then I started watching every single one of the shows. And then I started going and checking out the magazines that were about wrestling. And then I went to my library, and there was books about wrestling. And then I found out there was other wrestling. And then I found out there was other shows. And then there was Superstars and Livewire would also recap whatever happened on Raw on Saturdays and Sundays. So I would watch that every single week, because then it's something clicked in me that made me more of a go from a fan that just started to check this out because I was just flipping channels and I landed on wrestling one week into just a lifelong fan or whatever, and somebody who's stuck with it forever. And that was a lot of fun, like going and doing that research and kind of discovering things on my own and learning and expanding my horizons on my own was a lot of fun. And I would really hate to think that nobody else wants to do that, and that we just have to assume that everybody that's watching for the first time ever is never going to be interested ever again to actually dig in and learn and explore and want an unknown. Like I love the idea of watching a wrestling show and having no idea what anything was. And I love the idea of soaking up brand new knowledge and learning new things. I don't think we should just assume that everybody else that watches anything for the first time ever doesn't want to soak up any new knowledge and only wants to know what's being delivered in front of them and explain what's happening in front of them, and has no, sort of curiosity or anything. I would find that just so depressing if we think that every fan is that way. And I just don't think that's true. I just don't think it is. I think if you watch wrestling one time and that bug hits you and there's something that makes you say, hey, I kind of want to watch this again, and hey, I'm kind of interested in this thing, you'll watch it again and you'll learn, and you'll maybe go up on YouTube, or you'll go on Wikipedia, or you'll do whatever. Like, there's so many different ways, like you said, to find out new stuff and to discover knowledge about wrestling and find out who people are. And if you really want to get involved in this, there's so many different ways to do it. And I just hate this idea that that companies should always adhere to the lowest common denominator and the dumbest person possible, and the person that has no curiosity and no knowledge and doesn't want to learn anymore, and you just have to tell them everything that's happening because they can't handle it. It's very weird. And someone in the chat room brings up a great point too. The casual fan is the least loyal viewer. Why should you, and that's true, that's absolutely true, why should you adhere to them and not adhere to the people that watch your show every single week? Why should the show be tailored to that person and not the 800,000 people that watch your show every single week, or the 100,000 to 150,000 people that buy your pay-per-views every single month? Like, that's who I'd want to gear my show towards, not this hypothetical corncob person that I don't even know exists.
And there is a cost, because, if you want to go after this casual fan, some of the things these people suggest will turn off your core fan base. Like, if you start doing an extra 10 minutes every show that is highlight video recap packages, that's one less fresh match of show to the fan that is watching every week that's loyal. You are punishing the loyal fan, saying you're getting less new stuff because we have to try and attract this hypothetical fan. If you cut out the hardcore matches that a lot of people, that's a big draw why they bought a pay-per-view or something, say, well, we can't do this anymore because it might offend somebody somewhere. Like, again, we're talking about, we're doing these things to attract this casual fan. Well, if you gain one casual fan and lose one hardcore fan, you've done nothing. You've and a lot of those moves that would, in theory, which I don't even completely agree with, attract one fan would turn off a different fan. So, yeah, I just, as I get older, I feel like I know less and less about what this mythical fan is, and rather than more and more confident in what they want. And it's just, also, wrestling has commentators. They have people, like, if you miss an episode of an HBO serialized drama, if you miss an episode, you kind of do need to go back and watch it, or you'll be lost on certain shows. If you miss a week on wrestling, on pretty much every match, there are people that talk over the entire match, that tell you the wrestler's recent events, their motivations, their future goals. It's rare that you get a match of any length where you don't get fed. It might not be a video package, but get fed information. And it's just like that's an advantage wrestling has that movies and TV and so many things don't have. Wrestling is built in to be a form of entertainment that's way easier to catch up on. And again, I go back to when I was young, like you talked about you being young. Like when I was young, sometimes as a kid, I really loved wrestling, but sometimes I would have like soccer practice and I would miss Superstars that week or something, Sometimes my parents
my dad signed me up for a basketball league and they had them on Monday nights. And I was like, well, I can't do that. That's when Raw's on. He's like, well, too bad. That's when you signed up. So for 6 months, I just didn't watch Raw. I was like, all right, whatever. I survived. Yeah.
sometimes my parents would order me a pay-per-view. A lot of times they wouldn't order a pay-per-view, and I would just miss it, and somehow that did not destroy my fandom. And that was back during an era like today. There are so many avenues, and Brian talks about doing your homework. If you want to get a quick recap of wrestling that you takes 2 or 3 minutes to read, you can find that for any goddamn show. If you want to just watch a couple clips of the key angles for 5 minutes, you can find that from any show. If you want to listen to long form podcasts that recap everything, including Booker T Appreciation Night, you can find those. And Brian Alvarez makes a fucking living doing that. And so he should know that there's an audience for people that want to quote unquote do their homework. And I just feel like we're living in an era where it's never been easier to catch up on wrestling on what you don't know. And yet I've never heard so much pearl clutching about how difficult it must be to this fan that, they did not explain the latest development on Collision of the Triangle of Madness. This is going to end the fandom. I just don't get it.
It's perplexing, yeah. And it's also, and you brought this up a little bit earlier. It's pro wrestling too. It's not that fucking hard. It's one of the easiest, simplest forms of entertainment. It is not that big to try to pretend that it's like a prestige HBO drama, like you said, and something that you might want to. And those shows are designed that way. And I thought your article brought that up in a very good way. That there was a time where television shows were meant to just be consumed in the way that. And it's hard to fathom now because nobody would watch TV this way anymore. No, people would lose their mind if you presented TV this way to them, where you just watched, if you were home on Thursday, you watched Seinfeld. If you weren't home on Thursday, you missed that episode of Seinfeld. And you know what? You may never see that episode of Seinfeld ever again. Maybe it appeared in the summer again when they showed replays, but probably not. And then you just went, whatever. And then maybe you'd see that episode later sometime, 10 years down the line when it got syndicated or whatever. But it was okay. You missed an episode of Seinfeld. You missed an episode of Seinfeld. Not a big deal. You'll survive. And now people are so, I think there's a mentality that everything must be watched from the beginning and everything must be binged, and you can't just jump into a show. People will not just watch a show. People will not just go on, whatever streamer and say, oh, I'm going to watch, season 3, episode 4 of this random show or whatever, and just watch it. And I'm probably in that same bucket too. I don't think I could do it. I've sort of trained myself to say, oh, if I'm going to watch this show, I have to watch it from the beginning. I must watch everything about the show. And that's really not how not every show needs to be consumed that way. Not every show should be consumed that way. That's a very weird way to go about it. But we've sort of been trained now in the streaming era that that's how a big time show happens, and shows have been created to say, hey, if you're watching a prestige HBO drama, you probably shouldn't jump in it. If you're watching Severance on Apple TV, you probably shouldn't jump into season 2, episode 2. You're not going to have any fucking idea what's going on. You should probably watch the entire show and then catch up. But wrestling isn't really that. Wrestling is not that high art. It's fucking pro wrestling. I think you'll figure it out in a week or two. You'll figure it out as the show's going on. And if you don't figure it out, whatever. It's not going to be the end of the world. And it just, it boggles my mind how much time is spent on discussing. And again, I think it just has to be laziness and people not having anything interesting to say to do this, because, and I'll kind of close with this and then we can sign off on the show here, or unless you have anything else you wanted to get to. But wrestling is a weird, crazy freak show. Right. It's bizarre and it attracts very strange. You have to be kind of strange, I think, in a good way. Trust me. Everybody that I love pro wrestling. I'm a strange man. I would not consider myself a normal human being. I watch a lot of pro wrestling. Every one of my friends that watches pro wrestling, we're all a little weird. You know what I mean? In our own way. And everybody should be a little weird. Being weird's fun. You should be weird. You shouldn't be boring and normal or whatever. But wrestling's weird. It's strange. It's trashy. It's bizarre. It's anybody you watch wrestling, like you said, with your relatives or whatever, and normal people are like, what the fuck is this and why do you watch it? And you really can't explain to them. You're just like, I don't know, it's just for some reason it clicked with me and it's just great. And you maybe try to explain stuff and you explain why you watch it, but for some people they just watch it and they just go, this is ridiculous, I can't believe you watch this. I think to assume that wrestling will ever attract the normalest of normal people is just, I don't know. I feel it's a losing proposition. It's only ever going to attract people that are interested in pro wrestling. And that might seem simplistic and basic or whatever. And you're like, well, that's not going to grow or whatever. But if it's popular and it's good, we've lived through different eras where it's been really good and everybody watched it. During the Attitude Era, all my friends, I started watching in 94 and not many of my friends watched it, but I saw it rise up. And then in 96, 97, and then of course, big time in 98, All my friends that never watched wrestling all started watching wrestling because it was cool to watch wrestling, and they got all into it. And then they all fell off. One by one, they all fell off, and they just said, you know, I'm good. I'm done with this. And I stuck with it because I'm one of those freaks or whatever that stuck with it. But I also had a bunch of friends growing up that wouldn't be caught dead watching wrestling. That even when it was the coolest thing to watch and everybody was watching it, they were like, "What the fuck are you guys watching?" It was only my weirdest friends, and they were all, you know, and they you know, some were normal, more normal than others, but my real true, like my friends that were like really good at sports and my friends that were really, they didn't watch wrestling. They were like, the fuck is this? This wrestling is ridiculous. It's so stupid. What are you watching? It's a barbaric sport. It's dumb. It's silly. It's fake. You know, it's fake, right? Yeah, I know it's fake. Thanks for pointing it out. Like, of course I do. And so we're always chasing that fan that I think is just always going to look at wrestling as that's trash, that's fake, and never attracting the fans that might watch it for the first time and go, you know what? This is really cool. And I think there's so much is sort of geared towards making sure that everything that makes wrestling really cool and wrestling stand out and make it where it would attract that person that watches it for the first time and goes, whoa, what is this? We want to strip that all away to maybe chase the possibility that person that thinks it's fake and stupid is going to start watching it. And I just think that's such a losing proposition. And I just never think you're going to actually create fans that way. I just don't.
Yeah, I think that's a greght point. And Yusef, I have anything else to say. The only things I would say is this has been eating me up all show. I said Kotaro Suzuki. I meant Kenzo Suzuki. Thank you, someone in chat who reminded me of that. I have to say that, Rich. It was going to drive me crazy.
You have to, because things will happen where I will say something on this show, and then I'll go to bed, and then I'll wake up in like a sweat at like 1:45 a.m. and be like, God damn it, I said that. And like the people are going to, and then I go on Discord, people are like, Rich, did you mean this? And I'm like, yeah, I did. You know what I mean? And I can't go back to sleep. And it drives me nuts. So I'm glad you said that. So people do not at him. Do not at him. He got it right.
And I guess my last thing would be, I thought you made great points, but I guess my last point would be too, which is we talk about like, fans need to know everything that's going on. You know, we have concrete proof that wrestling fans self-select and don't watch everything, and they're okay with that because we know for a fact more people watch Dynamite every week than Collision. More people watch Raw and SmackDown every week than NXT. Like, we have for a 100% fact, there are plenty of fans every week that pick and choose and go, I will watch that, I won't watch that. Like, and they're long-term, consistent fans. You know, most fans that watch on TV don't buy the pay-per-views. You know, so this idea that fans need complete information all the time or that impedes them from being a wrestling fan, that in reality shows us that's not the case. Fans pick and choose everything.
Yeah, and to that point too, I think you hear people, you can't do this because that's not, you know, the fans don't want that, or they don't want violence, or they don't want just wrestling, and they don't want this, and they don't. But I think the further and further you make pro wrestling not pro wrestling, why the fuck would anybody watch pro wrestling? Like, you can watch, if you want comedy, I'm going to go watch a comedy that's actually funny. I'm not going to watch pro wrestling, which is normally not very funny. If I want drama and like true, like serialized drama, I'm just going to watch really good serialized dramas. If I want, nothing can do pro wrestling better than pro wrestling. So have it be a little bit of violence. Have it be pro wrestling. Have it cut, you know, ridiculous promos. Be as pro wrestling as possible. And I know people listening to this know what I mean when I say pro wrestling. You might say it to somebody on the outside and they would go like, what do you mean, or whatever, and it'd be harder to describe. But we all know what pro wrestling is and what it looks like or whatever. And I think so often it's like, oh, well, you can't do that because casual fans are going to, fuck that. I want people that are going to say, what is this, you know, simulated sports circus? This is interesting to me. I'm going to watch this. Those are the people that are going to watch. Like, you need to have pro wrestling be pro wrestling. The further you make it not pro wrestling, why the hell would anybody watch pro wrestling?
Yeah, and I had the same experience of you where, like, started watching wrestling in 93, 94, had a bunch of friends join up when it like boomed in 98, and most of them faded away after the boom, and some held on a little longer than others. But we would do like daily AOL. There'd be like a running AOL instant messenger. I'm really showing my age now, chat, with probably a running tally of 30 to 50 people that would float in and out throughout the day every day. And there would be people that people would know would be like me, my co-host Matt Feuerstein, some people would know Justin Shapiro, funniest guy on the internet, and the Cubs fan Joe Gagne. And I would say of those people, those are probably the only people out of like 50 to 60 people that survived past, like, I don't know, 2003. Yeah, and so that's the other thing. Casual fans, you don't hold on to them very long, like you were talking earlier, you know. So would you rather super serve the fan that's going to be hooked at age 10 and be a fan potentially for 60 more years? Or do you want to hook the fan that's when they're 18, that's going to leave when they're 23 regardless, because this was just a fad to them and they've had their fill and they're going to move on? Like, who are you going to make more money from?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think current WWE is going to have maybe tackle that same issue here moving forward, because they clearly got to a point where they had a lot of people that maybe were not watching wrestling or new wrestling fans or whatever. Clearly, they attracted new fans. They attracted a whole swath of new fans. But it feels like maybe that fad is dying out a little bit. And now, have you hurt everybody else that's actual pro wrestling fans that are like you said, lifelong pro wrestling fans? Have they sort of faded away, and now you attracted and served only those like brand new super casual fans, and they're kind of done with you? You know, how do you kind of work that out moving forward? It's gonna be fascinating to see.
Yeah.
So there we go. All right, we have done over 3 hours. We got over 3 hours, so I think we are good to go. But Trevor, I want to get your plugs out of the way before we say goodbye.
Okay, so at Trevor Dame is my Twitter. Patreon.com/Mecca is my Patreon. And Through the Years, THROH is how you spell through, is the Ring of Honor podcast I do with Matt Forrestein. And so, yeah, those are basically the three things. And I feel like you got the classic Trevor Dame experience here, where I started off slow and off-putting with revealing the I called April Hunter, which again, complete accident. I'm sure she's a lovely woman, but I probably instantly made people think I was an awful pig. And then, like always, I dig myself out of the hole slowly over time with Booker T anecdotes.
Yes, you did. You did nail that. Yes. And then discussing how I made you. Man, I didn't make you ill. You were already ill, but
no,
maybe.
You put the cherry on top of that Sunday.
Correct. Yeah, it was Red Robin clearly that made you ill. The gray molasse, like whatever thing you ate or whatever made you ill. But yeah, I put the cherry on top of the whatever the hell, your food poisoning or whatever. Are you good? Are you all right after that?
Yeah,
everything's fine?
It was one of those things where it was really bad and then very quickly got better.
Okay.
I should have posted about it, though, because I think one time obviously my minor Twitter following doesn't mean anything in life, but when I knew it was something that was more than just shitting around with my friends, was once I made a comment about a Papa John's pizza I had a slice of, and Papa John's was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "This is the power of followers."
This is so good.
Did something go wrong?
Yeah. Did you get the guy like did they put like their initials behind the tweet as well to let you know that they were?
I don't remember, but I think I made some joke about how, like, this Papa John's pizza makes me wish I was dead or something. And Papa John's was like, "Is there something wrong? Are you okay?"
Here's the suicide hotline.
And I did not tag them.
Wow.
They found me.
Yeah. Classic tweet deck. The tweet deck at Papa John's HQ was like, somebody should respond to this man. He's going to kill himself over our pizza.
Yeah. Yeah. So I should let Red Robin know. But anyway, thank you. On that note. Thank you.
That's a great note. Trevor Dame, incredible. Thank you so much for coming on here and helping us out. At Trevor Dame on Twitter, again, one of the only good Twitter accounts still left. So if you must use the app, you must indeed follow Trevor. Definitely subscribe to his Patreon, patreon.com/Mecca. And then, of course, Through the Years, the great retro Ring of Honor podcast. Make sure you subscribe and listen to that. Trevor, thank you so much for filling in. And I believe we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming next week with Joe back in the fold. So again, we'll talk to you then. Take care. Bye.
Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragon Gate is, how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragon Gate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.
Thank you for calling the Bombas Comfort Line. Bombas make socks, slippers, tees, and underwear made with the highest quality materials. Press 1 for comfort, 2 for style, 3 for donation. You chose style. Bombas is styles for whatever you enjoy. You can run in Bombas, lounge in Bombas, dress them up, dress them down, but always give back in Bombas. Because with every item purchased, another is donated. Bombas, comfort worth calling for. Go to bombas.com/audio and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.